Well, we've been telling you, have a plan, be prepared, get that Wave Weather app on your phone so you can stay up to date on this alert day. Because, Kevin, some people could get that weather that we've been talking about. Others may not see it.
Yeah, not everybody's going to see severe weather, but it's certainly possible everywhere because of the atmosphere being in such a state that it's just explosive. I mean, it's just waiting for that trigger to help blow those storms up over top of us. And that's the reason we have had the alert day for over 7 days now, saying, hey, you're going to have to pay attention to Thursday and Friday. And here we are at Friday, and we're going to keep that alert day in place until midnight tonight. We have that for two reasons, really. Supercell thunderstorms that are possible, and we've seen already today, and they're on the map. I'll show you that in a second. And lines or clusters of storms that will be moving through. The impact is the same with both of those. Very strong wind gusts, very large hail, and the potential for significant tornadoes. It's a moderate risk that was put in place for us. That came out yesterday for today, noting 4 out of 5 from the Storm Prediction Center. Those are fairly rare. Haven't had one of those in quite some time. Well, had one earlier in April, but since then we haven't had one before that for quite some time. If you're reporting hail, and we do have a chance for some very large hail to get up the scale to as high as tennis ball or baseball size in some places, just know that your reports are helpful. It takes a lot to get very large hail. Let me explain how that works in the atmosphere. We'll bring on the thunderstorm here, and you're going to notice the thunderstorm grows in height. That's what makes it so strong, is when you get a very tall storm. A cap sort of keeps that from happening. We're busting that cap. So we get this very strong wind in the storm. Those are updrafts. They take the water particles, they push them up into a very cold area of the cloud. They mix with the supercooled droplets. They try to drop back down. If the updraft is strong enough, it kicks it back up until the hailstone is large enough that the updraft can no longer suspend it. And then it, boom, falls to the ground. Obviously, the larger the hail, the more powerful the thunderstorm. That's one thing we'll be watching, will be for that, the potential for some large hail. The other is the ingredients for tornadoes are there, both in terms of wind shear with speed and direction. We get the updraft coming in and the downdraft on the backside of that system. Yes, we can cause the rotation, and yes, that can lead to tornadoes. So oftentimes that's accompanied with hail as well. So we do have that potential in store as well this evening. Let me get you outside and we'll take a look at the maps. We are under a partly sunny to now a mostly cloudy sky, recovering from the morning storms. We've seen temperatures push into the 70s and 80s, dew points climbing upper 60s, low 70s. That's fuel for thunderstorms moving in. We're dry. All 34 counties at this point dry. Severe thunderstorms are moving into central Indiana, could clip the northern part of our viewing area. We'll be watching that. Additional storms back out to the west we have to watch. I think we'll fill in this gap between the cluster of storms moving into central Indiana and the tornado warning and the most powerful storm on the radar in western Kentucky. This one will continue moving close to our viewing area, may clip parts of Grayson County, Hart County. Certainly if I was in Bowling Green, you'd be paying close attention to this storm. That storm has had a history of damage, obviously a lot of lightning and wind with that cell as well. And then, of course, you get the back edge of this. So, again, first part and then the second part. And those will be what we watch track in here this evening. So you're probably thinking, well, what time does it arrive at my location? With the watch in place until 11 o'clock along and west of I-65, additional watches may be issued. Between 6 and 8, we see the storms approaching Louisville. Between 7 and 9, they should be moving through, maybe closer to that 8 to 9 time frame for Louisville. And then between 8 and 10, they move off to our east. We've got you covered, regardless if we're on the air. We will be if there are tornado warnings, but even if it's severe thunderstorm warnings, we will have you covered through all of our stations, and we'll be on streaming starting at 8 o'clock. All of the ingredients are there for severe weather this evening. Our current temperature running in the low 80s. We'll drop into the 60s tonight. The severe weather's out of here by midnight. Sets the stage for a beautiful weekend. We're back in the 70s, upper 70s for Saturday and Sunday. Another alert day, though it's not as strong or showing as much potential by late next Tuesday, followed by some cooler weather. That's our 10-day. We'll be right back.
I'm Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harnett, and you're watching Wave.
With alert day coverage now, this is Wave News. Thanks for joining us for Wave News at 7. I'm Jose Sosaya in for Dawn. Our alert day kicking into high gear tonight. We've seen radar showing those storms inching toward us. This means a change to many Friday night plans. Racing Louisville, for example, postponing tonight's game until tomorrow. More on that in just a moment. Right now, let's get to it with your forecast meteorologist Ryan Hoke. Ryan, a lot of folks at home going to ask when's the worst of it moving in?
Yeah, and we're kind of in the final minutes before we start likely our wall-to-wall coverage at some point here during this hour this evening. The alert day goes through about midnight, but there are some signs this may go an hour or two beyond that, especially for areas south and east of Louisville here. Let's break it down. There's a tornado watch along and west of I-65 through 11 o'clock this evening. A further watch is possible downstream of the one we have now. This is what we have on the radar. Dangerous radar confirmed tornado now, observed tornado really, up toward the Bloomington, Indiana area now. There is grapefruit size hail possible in this storm. Follow my hand here. This is going to track just north of Lawrence County, Indiana. The tornado warning polygon comes right up to the county border there for Lawrence. So we're watching you folks up in Avoca, Indiana, very carefully here for the next little bit. We also need to monitor this developing thunderstorm south of Bedford, Indiana. This is near Haleysburg, and that's going to be in northern Washington County. This is very slowly moving toward the north and east toward Freetown in the US 50 corridor. That's not organized, nor is it severe at this time. We don't have any warnings around here right now. Louisville is dry, but you'll see some storm activity near Tell City that we'll keep an eye on that may be trying to explode. And this is the big kahuna right here. Unfortunately, you'll see this debris tag here with a very severe supercell thunderstorm east of Eddyville, Kentucky. This thing is going to track very close to Hart County here over the next several hours. It has had a history of putting down tornadoes in parts of southern Illinois and southeast Missouri. See all these supercells to our west? Eventually, this fills in a bit more and drags across our area during the overnight hours. I talked about Bloomington, Indiana a little earlier. They've got that supercell with the confirmed tornado moving in. That's what it looks like there from our SkyTrack camera up there. In our next 12 forecast, you'll see that the rain chance eventually falls off after midnight tonight, but of course severe weather is going to be a problem. Tornadoes, wind of 70 miles per hour or greater, and we're talking possibly baseball-sized hail in our area, all possible across wave country. Temperatures right now near 80 degrees, 70s to our west. As we get through the rest of our newscast here, the 10-day earliest alert will show you a windy Saturday, another alert day for our Tuesday, and cooler air late next week. It's coming up in a few minutes, Jose.
Appreciate the breakdown. Thank you, Ryan. Again, the Wave News storm tracking team has been warning you for a week in advance about the system, changing plans and people's activities for tonight. Wave News reporter Logan Perrone, for example, live now in our storm tracker. And Logan, again, we recently heard Racing Louisville postponing tonight's game to keep things safe.
Yeah, that's right, Jose. And I actually just want to say our original plan was to go talk to some of the tailgaters who were going to be out there braving some of these elements. You know, we found out it was canceled, so we figured we'd go over there and talk with them anyway. He was finishing his beer, so he didn't want to talk with us on camera, but that's okay. They all were cleared out. I believe there's only a few people there, he said, before they cleared out. As for where we are currently in downtown at the moment. Again, like Ryan had mentioned, it's relatively dry. We haven't seen a lot of rain here, any at all, since that first round actually came in. But we were outside. We were down near Iroquois Park earlier. We were looking to get up to Scottsburg. We're going to make our way there within the next half hour, and we'll just keep you guys updated as we make our way there. The only thing we've seen out here, guys, right now, we've only seen just a little bit of wind pickup. We've seen darker clouds move in, but other than that, the metro area, dry. So we'll be making our way up north, hopefully to get you guys a little more of the rain that is coming down. But for now, Jose, we'll send it back to you.
I appreciate it, Logan. Stay safe out there.
This is a Wave breaking news alert.
It's 7:30 right now. We're following some breaking news. We've learned at least 4 people have died after a possible tornado swept through St. Louis. The storms apparently ripped the roofs right off of buildings along with the siding. Trees and power lines also all knocked down. We're learning 3 people had to be rescued from inside of a church that partially collapsed, and we found out another person inside of that church died from their injuries. On this Wave Weather Alert Day, we are following what's getting closer to that time, expecting these storms to arrive, and the storm tracking team following all the conditions that have set us up for the forecast. Let's get right to the latest with meteorologist Ryan Hoke. Ryan?
Jose, you can see all of these storm reports, tornado and wind damage reports across parts of Indiana, Illinois, Missouri. We talked about St. Louis. See all the wind damage and tree damage reports out that way. They've had at least one potential tornado within the St. Louis metro area today. Here in Louisville, we do have some some warnings, but they're just severe thunderstorm warnings for now. And of course, if you're up in parts of Jackson and Jennings counties, you've got that severe thunderstorm warning until 7:45 this evening. Seymour now seeing some very heavy rain and potentially some decent hail. This thunderstorm in Bloomington, Indiana is getting ready to get upgraded here to an observed tornado. You can see what potentially is a debris ball here on the south side of Bloomington, getting ready to cross I-69 between Sanders and Bloomington. If you know anybody in the southern part of the Bloomington area, give them a call, say, hey, tornado on the ground, getting ready to move through. This is just north of our counties now, moving toward areas just south of Nashville, Indiana. We're watching these storms near Brandenburg, and there's a new severe thunderstorm warning. Let's query that. We'll be able to see exactly where that is. There we go. That is a new severe thunderstorm warning now for parts of eastern Jackson and parts of Jennings counties there. That goes until 8:15 p.m. About 34,000 folks involved with that brand new warning there. And of course, back to the maps we go. We're watching those storms to the south and west of Louisville right now, and a tornado problem down across areas just north of Hopkinsville there. You see this, of course, mega supercell out that way. We go up toward parts of southern Illinois. Saline County, Illinois, now under a tornado emergency, a very rare thing, catastrophic threat with a tornado and debris on radar near Harrisburg, Illinois. You can see that debris there near Dyersburg, Illinois at this time, getting ready to cross US 45. The reason we show you that is because all of this is heading in our direction out to our west toward us to the east. And it's all thanks to a cold front that's sitting just to our west here. It's going to take quite some time for that to move through. We'll see these storms until at least around midnight, if not an hour or two after that. Tornado watch here in Louisville until 11 p.m. East of Louisville, about 3 a.m. for that tornado watch expiration there. Rain chances will go down after midnight tonight once these storms move through. You'll, of course, notice temperatures right now around 80 degrees here in Louisville. We'll talk more about these storms coming up in just a few minutes, Jose.
I appreciate it, Ryan. Of course, we'll keep our eyes peeled, and that's why our storm tracker is also out to head out to any areas that may be hit hard, feel some of those ingredients. Our storm tracker was heading to Scottsburg. Now we're actually heading to Bullitt County, and we're checking in on Wave News reporter Logan Perone with what he's seeing out on the ground. Hey, Logan.
Hey, Jose, look, sometimes that's just how it is with weather, right? We never know what it's going to do. So we were heading up to Scottsburg, Indiana. We flipped 180. We're going down 65 south now, and the clouds look a little ominous. Take a look at our roof cam. It's already got some raindrops on it, and you can just see, I'm going to try to do a slow pan here. You can just see the clouds all off to our south, southwest, completely dark. The rain, the further we get down, the more we're experiencing. This just started coming down. Again, we're right by the airport now. Within the last handful of minutes, I'd say last 5 minutes or so, we started getting more and more rain. So again, we're going to be heading down to Bullitt County where we see these ominous clouds. We see it getting darker. And again, we're just going to be keeping on top of this. I'm going to give you guys a more steady look. Traffic right now still moving pretty good on 65 south. Again, the rain not coming down too hard, but again, Jose, we're heading down to Bullitt County. We will keep you guys updated as this storm hits us throughout the evening.
All right, Logan, real quick, some schools adjusted their graduation plans to keep ceremonies dry. DeSales moved their graduation up 2 hours early, moved the ceremony to the Iroquois Amphitheater. School leaders say there's a lot of things they had to consider when they were changing the graduation ceremony.
Making the decision about how much we were going to move it and whether we were going to move it or not was certainly not simple as well. So we've just been monitoring all the apps, all the sites, National Weather Service since about 5:15 this morning, and made a call about 1 o'clock that we felt like we had a window that if we moved it from 7:30 to 5:30, we could get it in.
All right, real quick, we have a major update right now. Let's bring in Chief Meteorologist Kevin Harned with this important update for you all. Kevin.
All right. Hey there, Jose. Thanks. Our whole team's been assembled all day, so we're all here watching the weather. We've got the latest tornado warning, and it now includes parts of the viewing area, so we'll jump on with nonstop weather coverage at this point. Likely be here for quite some time as we continue to track what's going on across the area. This warning is for Jackson and Jennings County. This is the one we were watching. Goes until 8:15 tonight. We also have additional tornado warnings that have come out across a number of places. Back to the west of us, back to the north of us. So we are keeping a close eye on what we're watching through not just southern Indiana, but back to the west that will yet to move in our direction. So let me just take you on a little radar tour. We'll start with this warning that we have across the northern part of the viewing area. And this is Jackson, Jennings County, Bartholomew and Decatur counties also under this. This storm that's been moving past Bloomington, for instance, is a tornado emergency. That's a tornado that is on the ground, continuing to intensify. And now we have 2 additional tornado warnings that we're watching. One just off to the north of North Vernon, and that clips part of Jennings County. So we have that one that reaches into parts of Bartholomew and Decatur County. That warning also in place until 8:15 this evening. So those are 2 storms that we're watching in the northern part of the viewing area. All of us have the reason to watch in terms of the fact that there is a tornado watch that's in place for everyone, along and west of 65 until 11, east of 65 until 3 a.m. So again, just pointing out that we do have the threat that will continue into the evening hours. Let me mention that with that threat comes not only the threat of tornadoes, but also the threat of large hail and damaging winds. So those are 3 things we have to really be mindful of as these storms track through. Again, you can see the tornado warning to the north. Let me zoom into that for you, and we'll point out a couple of things that you need to know. First of all, this cluster of storms south of Louisville, growing but not severe. This one is, and you can see in that storm, again, the hail size for this particular one, not all that impressive, but we've had hail up to grapefruit size that has been reported in a few places. Let's look at the velocity on this. We're looking just south of the Seymour area. That couplet trying to show there as this moves across the county line from Jackson into Jennings County, Seymour, Hayden, North Vernon, all in the path of that storm. We are tracking that. Let me go over to Brian Good, who's keeping an eye on some of the traffic cameras up across Indiana. Brian.
All right, thanks, Kevin. Yeah, that's that cell that we just got an alert on from the Weather Service saying that, hey, this may be crossing here on I-65 just south and east of Seymour itself. Let me show you. This is one of the camera feeds we have that is right there along 65. Hard to tell. This is a camera still, so this is likely more of US 50, it looks like, and the crosshairs there into parts of 65. It's not the actual interstate itself, but you can tell kind of an ominous look because the sun is actually still getting through on one side of the image, and the other side you can tell obviously the storm is impacting them. With this updating every few moments, we will have just take it minute by minute as we're tracking there into Seymour. No confirmation of a tornado on the ground here into Seymour County. It's just the rotation certainly has been developing there rapidly, and we're just taking it scan by scan. But no doubt, lowest level of your home, away from windows, Jackson and Jennings County in general, that should be the rule. In fact, everyone watching, that should be something you're thinking of now, because at some point we may all be facing warnings like this tonight, Kevin.
Yeah, you're right. This is going to be a long night ahead as we take a look at what's going on across the scope of things. It's why we've deployed the storm tracker earlier in the day. We were going up to the north, up towards Scottsburg, and then we said, you know what, we're concerned a little about the growth of what's happening to our south, so we pushed it back to Bullitt County. We'll continue to watch this. This is having a little trouble exploding or advancing, but that will not be the case all evening long. What's happening in the atmosphere right now is we're sort of starting to see that low-level jet increase that typically happens around or just after sunset, and that's when we expect not only the mid-levels to cool down, but increasing the lift with that jet coming in. That's going to allow for additional development to take place. Obviously, right now, all eyes are on the area to our north, and that is a series of tornado warnings.
And Kevin, we can see now one of the other stills, folks underneath the overpass. They're on I-65. We can show that on Max 2. This is, again, right there into Seymour. So the cars, and a lot of this is just heavy rain, but several people pulled off to the side. Not the place you want to be, by the way, in a tornado situation, obviously, but I get it. And everyone at the moment probably is not aware of that. They're seeing it's heavy rain, and there's pulling off. But please, if you don't have to travel at all, just stay home, Kevin.
Yeah, let me show you what this whole wide setup looks like. And you can see the cluster of storms between Indianapolis and Louisville. Those have a number of tornado warnings. Tornadoes actually on the ground doing considerable damage. Additional tornado warnings approaching the Bowling Green area. Debris showing up out near Carbondale, southern Illinois, and then another one in southern Missouri. So we've got a series of storms that will be moving in our direction. As we take a closer view of what's happening to our north, let me just zoom into that because these storms are all intensifying fairly fast. And I'm just going to zoom into that core of storms to the north, noting that we're just north of Louisville. Here's Seymour, greatest rotation on that between Seymour and Crothersville, moving across the county line, just going to move south of North Vernon and Hayden. We go to our velocity. see, where we can see that rotation clearly. And I'm going to use the scope on this, and then we'll look also at the hail, because we have hail in some of these storms as well, and that will intensify too. You can see the greatest rotation now crossing the county line, pushing it just south of Hayden, just south of North Vernon. You should be in your tornado safe place. Where is it? It's the lowest level, away from windows. You've got to be there, as these storms all have had a history of producing tornadoes that have touched down, and especially this one up around the Bloomington area. Tornado emergency has been issued for that storm. These storms continue to show rotation up around Westport, that's Indiana, and then of course the one in our viewing area tightening up even more just south of Hayden and North Vernon. When we look at the hail potential in that storm, let me go back to it, and I'm going to zoom back into it, and then we'll look at the hail on the hail scope. This warning goes until 8:15, so we still have another 30 minutes on the warning, and then to the hail scope we go, and we'll take a closer view of any hail that we may have within that storm. And then Brian will take a look at some of the debris. We'll be able to put some tracks on these storms as well. When we look at the hail potential, obviously we have a number of warnings, and consequently you can see a number of locations where hail could happen. We've seen that quarter to ping pong ball size, but in some of the extreme instances, we've seen upwards of tennis to baseball size hail being reported. The cluster of storms across southern parts of Jefferson County continues to expand. That likely will continue to expand with lightning and heavy rain, now moving across parts of Valley Station, up toward Fairdale, Okolona, South Park. All of that region will see some showers and thunderstorms as this continues to develop, and that trend will also produce some heavy rain, which will be a concern of its own as the night goes on. Back to our home view here, and you're going to see a number of tornado warnings to our north. Just north of the viewing area, there are 4 tornado warnings lined up, and then in the northern part of our viewing area, it's Jackson and Jennings County. That's the one that obviously has the most attention given to it from us right now, but obviously we have additional storms still to move through as the rest of the night goes on. Let's track this storm. I'm going to zoom in. You're going to notice that that storm is moving almost out. Not quite yet, but almost out of Jackson County. And Brian's tracking that. We'll put some towns on it. It's just south of Hayden, Brian. This is going to go just north of Hilltown. Likely heavy rain and hail, perhaps, in North Vernon, but the greatest rotation shows up just south of there.
And it looks like there was 2 that I'm able to pick out. One that was very close to Seymour, near Chestnut Ridge area. You see the 2 circulations that were showing up on the radar. This was about 7:33, so about 10 minutes ago. Notice the one, though, that was just south of Seymour started to fade away, and then the one on the leading edge, this is the current view, is still now the one that is leading the charge. So we zoom in. If there's still a tornado potentially developing here, it's going to be right along County Road. Looks like 500 south, yeah, just north of that, actually right along it, heading right toward the Grayford area and Walnut Ridge. And again, we don't know, we don't have any confirmation of anything on the ground, but obviously this is one that continues to cycle and is an environment, absolutely favorable environment for this to be able to touch the ground. So if you are anywhere in Jennings County, but certainly on the south side, North Vernon, you need to make sure you're in a safe spot. This is moving at a pretty good clip. Last check, let me see if we get a speed on this. Coming in at about 50 miles per hour, heading due east at about 50. So it may end up being on the very, again, southern fringes there of North Vernon. Signature not as strong as what it was a second ago, Kevin, but as you see here, going back when we had the other scans, I mean, they're definitely cycling through at times, so we can't let our guard down. There's a lot of interaction happening here with these cells. We have like 3 or 4 different cells kind of colliding together, and that's making for a kind of a very messy look, and can cause things to change rather quickly.
Yeah, and Brian, while we're on, let's just have this discussion that this is just the beginning of what will be a long evening of storms. In fact, these storms, while they're cellular now, and we have supercells, just like the one we're tracking across parts of Jennings County, moving now out of Jackson County. There are several others to the north and back out to the west, expected to become a little more linear. So there are 2 threats still. We delayed the time because of that morning storm that lingered a little bit longer with clouds and rain. So that pushed this until now, 7, 8 o'clock. But there will be another round of showers and thunderstorms past what we're seeing now, right?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we knew we're going to have cells into eventual line. Both are dangerous. The cells will contain the largest of the hail. They will contain your tornado threat in a much higher end. The line itself is going to be much more the straight line wind scenario. It's not there yet. These are all supercells. They're just in a bit more of a line back into Illinois, but this is causing damage back in Illinois and southeast Missouri, entering into southwest Indiana. These are the cells we're watching. I know right now in Louisville, Kevin, there's some likely heavy rain and thunder obviously taking place right over the Jefferson Memorial Forest, Shepherdsville, not far from Lebanon Junction, High Grove area.
There's storm trackers in it, so
exactly.
We can see it.
Yeah, there you go. The bottom image there on the bottom right.
Yeah, and that part is not severe yet, but it's still growing, and that's what we've seen on a number of these. And there you see the darkening skies, southern parts of Jefferson County down into northern Bullitt County. That is the storm tracker. We've positioned that to be in that storm as it makes its way and continues to develop. The lone severe storm that we have is the tornado warning, and I'm going to zoom back into that so you'll note that Jackson County is now out of that warning, but Jennings County, you've got to be in your tornado safe place. The lowest level, we mentioned on the last scan of this that it has eased just a bit in terms of seeing not only the appendage and the hook, but when we look at the velocity on this, that's evened out just a bit as well, but it's clearly still there. So if there were to be a tornado, it would be south of US 50, that's south of Hayden, likely to go just south of North Vernon. This is moving off to the east at about 45 to 50 miles an hour. So if we were to put a track on that to see some of the towns that are involved and potentially in the track of this storm, just to give you a few locations, you can see Grayford and San Jacinto. We've got another severe
this is part of the metro, Kevin. While you're going to that, I just want to mention Weather Service said the data that we're getting from a lot of the UPS planes that come in to land have now confirmed the cap is gone, has eroded away.
Okay,
so
good
now,
news
now the atmosphere is ready to go.
Yeah, and what Brian is talking about is we get the aircraft coming into the city. This is valuable information because we don't launch weather balloons in Louisville, so to see the profile of the atmosphere is super helpful. The cap is a mid-level warm air, and that prevents storms from occurring. But once we erode that mid-level warm air, it can be done by a few things, but it's eroded. And now the storms are free to rise, and we're free to see that convection take place in the form of thunderstorms. So we have the latest thunderstorm. I'm going to pan this out. It's right where you saw the storm tracker. This is a severe thunderstorm warning. It's not a tornado warning, but it has the potential to continue to develop, and we'll watch that along the way. Winds up to 60 miles per hour with that storm. 1-inch hail possible with the storm. If you've been watching us for the last week, we've talked about the alert day. We've also talked about there being multiple threats with these storms. Wind, hail, and tornadoes, and we're seeing that unfold across the area as expected through the evening hours. So now that the cap is gone on the atmosphere, the lid has been removed, and now that we're starting to increase the low-level jet, these thunderstorms will continue to take off and explode.
And Kevin, the wind, I'm looking at the terminal radar, the wind is really ramping up here. This is I-65. I'm not sure where the storm tracker is exactly there in Bullitt County, but this is I-65 near the Brooks exit. Right on the southeast side of the Jefferson Memorial Forest. The wind is really ramped up there, traveling just south of the Gene Snyder Freeway. Also ramping up very close to Fort Knox in the Radcliffe area and around, say, West Point. But that surge of winds going up there. Also note the wind increase as well as you head very close to High Grove, getting close to 31 east. So several different pockets here now, Kevin. And again, this is looking at a different radar, but we're able to see some of these finer details, and those finer details matter in this kind of a setup.
Yeah, and while Brian is focused on the metro, we're going to check in. We'll figure out where Logan is. We'll get a live report from him in just a second. I want the folks to know in Jennings County that we are still watching you. This storm to the north is the lone tornado warning that we have. However, it has weakened just a bit. We still see some broad rotation south of North Vernon. That is still staying south of US 50 as that moves off to the north and east. You can see replacing the tornado warning is a severe thunderstorm warning across across Ripley County, Indiana. So that's a good sign. Doesn't mean that it's a solid sign that there will be no additional rotation or no additional tornado possible. But at this point, they've decided to extend that with a severe thunderstorm warning as opposed to keep the tornado warning going. We're still watching it. We still have that broad rotation moving across parts of central Jennings County. The greatest rotation and the greatest wind with that is just south of North Vernon. When we put our radar back on, you're going to notice a couple of things, and I'll just pop the radar on. All of this has happened within the last half hour in our viewing area where we've seen the explosiveness of the atmosphere. We still see some heavy rain. There's not a lot of hail with this storm pushing through. I'm going to go back to our home view across the area and point out that we have additional storms that are developing. One's closer to the river. That's as you work your way across far eastern parts of Jefferson County, Indiana, not far from Carroll County. One along the river in northern Oldham County. The storms here in Louisville that are severe, stretching into Bullitt, a good chunk of Spencer and western Shelby County. And then, of course, the cluster of storms with the tornado warning on that long track supercell moving into Bowling Green. All right, let's go over to Ryan Hoke. What do you have?
We're just off the phone with Indiana State Police. They say that a semi-tractor trailer is now overturned on 65 northbound. This is blocking all lanes near Seymour, and it happened right around the time the supercell thunderstorm was moving through. So we don't know the exact cause, but those two things at the same time are probably related here. So we'll continue to monitor for reports. Otherwise, dispatch in Jackson County has no severe weather reports at this time, but it is still early in the game, guys. We're going to still be making some phone calls and checking your reports on social media as well.
All right, appreciate that, Ryan. Thank you. Again, severe thunderstorm warning covers southern half of Jefferson County. That is for wind and the potential for some small hail. The tornado warning in Jennings County at this point continues as that storm moves fairly fast, 50 miles per hour off to the east, is going to take it out of the county before the expiration time, and that is set for 8:15, and we're just now edging up toward 8 minutes to the hour, top of the hour. So again, I just am pointing out that the rotation is not as great, and that is some good news. It was much tighter when that warning was issued. As we look at the velocity on this, again, we go back and forth. Very broad rotation, still seeing some pocket of heavy wind moving through North Vernon. So just because you may not be in the greatest concentration of where we have the rotating winds, there's still strong winds with these storms. And in some cases, there have been some very large hail with these storms, meaning upwards of baseball, and in some cases, even larger hail than that. So a big hail producing event that will eventually come into a big rain making event and wind event as the night unfolds. So for every minute that we go through the evening, we get less of a hail threat, more of a wind threat, and the potential for tornadoes will gradually ease a bit as well. We're not quite to that point yet, though. So we go back to our home view, and I'm going to put the radar on. You're going to notice with the velocity turned on, you can see pockets of heavy wind scattered along that trail. Brian is keeping an eye on the terminal Doppler radar, and Brian, let's take folks through the pockets of heavy wind not too far from northern Nelson County as these storms stretch down into Nelson, Bullitt, southern Jefferson.
Yeah, this is looking at the wind fields again where you see those greens indicating where you've got there's like another warning out. Let me see where that is. That Jennings? I think it's Jennings. Severe thunderstorm warning to north. We'll come back to that in a second. You can see the wind field. Again, you're looking at really where the brighter colors are in general of each type, whether it's a green or the red. And we noticed the strong pocket of wind that moved along the Snyder Freeway is eased a bit, heading toward Heritage Creek in the Highview area, not far from Okolona, heading to Fern Creek. Now we're seeing another pocket of wind that's been developing in phases. Most of this looks a little more like a straight line downburst signature here in the last couple of scans, but this is very close to Bardstown Road, 31 E's. You head into southeast Bullitt County and just north of Cox's Creek. That's where we're seeing some of the strong push of wind. Not to the point of producing any damage we know of at the moment, but those are the pockets I'm watching, as well as a general increase in wind that is moving into the western side of Bullitt County. We have the storm tracker in that area as well, Kevin, so as soon as we're able to, I see Logan's down there as well.
Yeah, let's just bring him in. Yeah. Logan, where are you now and what have you seen? I know you're headed down toward the Cox's Creek area, but just give us a quick update. We'll keep the radar up while we talk to Logan, and he can show us what he sees.
Yeah, guys, so we're out here in Bullitt County, Shepherdsville, and I wanted to point you in that southeast Bullitt County direction. We have it from our roof camera. You can see just how dark the skies are towards that direction. So this is basically what we've been seeing. I believe you guys might have caught that lightning there. We've been seeing a lot of lightning strikes. These really dark clouds coming over. The rain has slowed down where we are in Shepherdsville, but we are, again, what you're looking at on your screen there in our little pocket is towards Cox's Creek. That's where you guys had mentioned you had seen some rotation. So we are going to be heading that way. We're going to be trying to see any damage, any rain that we can find. But as of where we are right now, we're in Shepherdsville. We have seen a little less rain, but we'll send it back to you guys and we'll make our way down towards southeastern Bullitt County, guys.
All right, Logan Perone in the Storm Tracker today. Thank you. Appreciate the reports there. We'll see if anything comes of the severe thunderstorm warning that we have in place until 8:15. Parts of Bullitt, Jefferson, Shelby, and Spencer counties. All of that an indicator that we do have the potential for strong wind with that storm and 1-inch hail. But the real deal would be the wind with that part of the storm. Let me go back to the north. We keep bouncing between areas of concern. Obviously, Metro Louisville has some strong winds pushing through in pockets. Certainly has been tolerable. We haven't received any damage. Ryan is on the phone getting that information. And to the north, we've had the tornado warning. That too has weakened somewhat, both in the intensity and the way it looks. So goes hand in hand. That warning, and there's a number of severe thunderstorm and tornado warnings. And you might be wondering why the severe thunderstorm warning is popping up instead of the tornado warning. And the fact is that's labeled considerable. That's where we have 2-inch hail possible, 60-mile-per-hour winds. So this storm has weakened enough to really just be radar indicated, whereas this one is coming in with some real-time reports of considerable damage possibilities. So that's because of the reports that have come in with it and what the radar sees. So when we look at the velocity on this, I'm just going to show you that the rotation is still very broad at that storm in Jennings County, soon to move over into parts of Ripley County. And as that happens, we'll move that out of our viewing area. But for now, the tornado warning continues technically until 8:15 for Jennings County. That is the only tornado warning we have. The only other severe thunderstorm warning we have happens to be the one that is in the metro, and that includes Louisville, at least the southern half of Jefferson County, and that is where we have the stronger winds pushing through as Brian's been tracking across parts of northern Bullitt County and extreme southern Jefferson County. And I'll zoom into that just a bit, and as we watch those storms, not only are they putting down some rain, there really is the wind that's been problematic, and it's not consistent wind, it's pushes of wind, and you might get just a real quick gust of wind that can cause some quick problems, and then that's it. And we see that from the Jefferson Memorial Forest all the way up to Okolona, stretching south of 265 over toward Thyler Lane.
Yeah, it looks more like a straight line wind downburst scenario is what it looks like.
Yeah, why don't you show it on your radar, Brian, because you were just looking at some of that data that's coming in, and really it's right across northern parts of Bullitt County.
Yeah, there were two areas where pockets of wind seemed to burst out. One right in through this area, southeast Jefferson County, moving right into northern fringes there of Nelson and southwest of Spencer County there, southwest sections of Spencer County, not far from Taylorsville Lake. The other pocket of wind that was likely a downburst scenario was near the Snyder in southern Jefferson County. That wind has now moved into J-Town. We even got a tree down here in downtown Louisville near the station just from the wind gusts we've had moving through the area. I think the airport's now at 37 miles per hour, and that's even really behind majority of the storms that already moved through the area. So it's these little pockets of wind that we're going to be watching. This is a radar that we're able to have access to out of Mount Washington, so it's a little different look to it, but it does see some of those stronger wind gusts that we can get within the metro sometimes. So I'll keep an eye on that as these continue to evolve to the east-southeast.
All right, Brian, thanks. Keeping an eye on everything here in Louisville. Want to take you downtown near the Francescan Kitchen. This is where we have a tree that's been down. You can see some of the police tape up. Cops are and where we have the trees down here in Louisville. The storm tracker is making its way down into parts of Nelson County, where we have storms moving through near the Cox's Creek area, and that's where we've seen some strong winds. The tornado warning to our north, no, we're not ignoring southern Indiana. We've been rotating through all of the storms that we have. This storm has been a weaker storm and in that weakening mode, but you'll notice it does have a little bit of a hook still on it, so it bears continuing to watch. And when we look at that that velocity, I think you're going to see we still have a little bit of rotation. Again, still south of North Vernon. It's going to go south of Nebraska, just north of DuPont. DuPont is located in northern Jefferson County, Indiana. So getting so close to that warning, but it is firmly in Jennings County, and that warning has not extended over into Ripley County. So Johnson and Rexville, while you're under the severe thunderstorm warning, no tornado warning just yet. Should this tighten up a little more, that tornado warning would be extended farther to the east. It's moving at about 40 to 50 miles per hour on its forward motion. Again, strong storm, producing wind, but still on the weakening side of where it once was when we were first seeing the thunderstorms that were really rotating sharply, and that's where we had that couplet. Let me go to a wider view of what's happening across the area. I'll put the radar back on for a second, and then back to that wider view. As we zoom out to the home view, I'm going to point out the number of warnings that we have. Again, tornado warning is the only one, and that's up in Jennings County, Indiana, set to expire in 14 minutes. We have the severe thunderstorm warning across Jefferson County, Bullitt, a good chunk of Spencer, western parts of Shelby. Additional storms trying to develop now across northern Hart County, and a tornado warning approaching Bowling Green outside of the area. Let's go to Ryan Hoke.
All right, Kevin, I'm just off the phone with officials in Jefferson and Bullitt counties. They have no new damage to pass along right now in Jefferson. One of the only spots we know of is literally in front of the Franciscan Kitchen by the station here, having that tree down that we just showed you the live shot from. We'll continue to be in touch with folks down the line here, and as more tornadoes warnings are issued, we will likely be, of course, contacting a lot of folks, getting a lot of damage reports here, Kev.
All right, I see a lot of information coming in from the National Weather Service. They're tracking storms back out to the west of us, where we've been tracking tornadoes that are on the ground. Logan County is one of those. We've had a number of reports of large hail.
Got nickel size in Highview there at the Weather Service.
That's coming down now, so that's a real-time report there. I just want to mention the tornado warnings to the north of the viewing area continue. The one over in Jennings County is just about to move into Ripley County. So our focus will then go to areas to our south in Jefferson County, where we have now nickel-size hail being reported. And remember, we said wind and hail would be the main threat with this. It's sort of just a big blob or mess of rain, but it does contain wind and hail. It would be rough to get a tornado out of this sort of mixture that we have on the radar, but the wind and hail certainly a possibility. And we've picked out those pockets of wind in the Hillview area, not far from Tyler Lane. We were pointing out there was some strong push of wind. Sometimes that helps precipitate even the larger hailstones with that, and that's what we've seen, up to nickel-size hail coming out of southern Jefferson County.
And that wind spreading north into J-Town, a classic downburst kind of signature here, where it's spreading right in J-Town, the Snyder Freeway heading all the way up really into Middletown now. And it's likely the end cycle of this burst of wind. So if it knocked any trees down or caused any power outages, it already likely happened in the past, I would say, couple of minutes, as that surge of wind expands all the way in even Fisherville at the moment, Kevin. So that's a classic look to just a straight line downburst wind, but still can cause a lot of problems for us.
Well, you see the tree that's down already. That was not far from the downtown area. So we have already had some trees down, and that's with 30 to 50 mile per hour wind gusts with that. On the bottom part of your screen, the storm tracker working its way through Bullitt County. That's making its way over into Nelson County, just to sort of get a real-time feel of what's happening with the southern edge of this. But again, even here in Louisville, we've got trees down in places. So this is what's happening across Jefferson County. Back to our home view we go. And again, we're bouncing around on the views. Our plan will be, as long as the tornado warning is in place to the north, to stay on the air. And as long as we have wind damage occurring in the metro area, we'll stay on the air. If this storm were to weaken and we go off of the air, we're going to be continuing our coverage on our streaming platforms. Easy to find. If you have the Wave Weather app, you can watch it there. If you have wave3.com, you can watch it there. Roku, Apple TV, you know all of that. I just want to make sure you know where we're going to be, because we're not going anywhere. Just a matter of finding us, depending on what's actually happening, will be a little different. It's 78 degrees in Louisville. Winds, last measurement, 37 miles an hour. We go back to the tornado warned storm up in southern Indiana, and this is North Vernon. It's past you. You're in the clear. Butlerville in the clear. We mentioned San Jacinto earlier. Storm's passing over you right now. This is the county line that takes us from Jennings County into Ripley County. And yeah, that storm's still making its way off to the east. The greatest potential for rotation would be near the San Jacinto area. You can see that marked by the reds and greens on the radar. The greens toward the radar, the reds away. And that's where we would have that little couplet or the potential rotation showing up in the storm. And that still has the ability to move across the county line. So for now, the tornado warning continues. It's 8:06, scheduled to end at 8:15. And that's the look at the velocity. When we look at what to expect on the reflectivity, it's heavy rain. There's not a ton of hail with this storm. And if it were to be hail and the heavy rain, it's going to be over into Ripley County, closer to New Marion. That's where we see the darker colors on the reflectivity. All right, let me go back to the home view just to point out areas in Jefferson County and parts of Carroll County, streaming down into Oldham County, parts of Shelby, Spencer, Bullitt, northern Nelson County, all seeing storms that have the potential for some strong wind and some smaller hail with those storms as well. Down into Hart County, thunderstorms trying to erupt out ahead of that system that's moving into Bowling Green. This has been the longest lived storm we've been tracking. That came out of Missouri, where they've had, unfortunately, fatalities this afternoon with those storms that passed by St. Louis. There have been a number of tornadoes that have been confirmed on the ground out there. And then even toward Evansville, another cluster of storms making its way on. I'll go over to, well, my computer was freaking out for a minute there. Brian, I'll kick it over to you.
All right, let me show you some of the rotation signatures, Kevin, that we've been tracking. This really gives you an idea of where, at least on the wind damage side, some areas we're watching. Obviously, the one tornado that we've been tracking for a while, look at that signature that has been raking just on the northern side of Hopkinsville, is not easing a bit, and also a little bit of a turn up to the north where it's cycling, which is pretty wild to see that on the actual signal itself there from the radar. You get into Louisville. Now, this, again, just shows you that storm did have the wind potential with it, but not exactly a tornado. It just produced a burst of wind, likely a downburst scenario. I got a feeling we're going to hear more about some tree damage, though, in parts of Jefferson County, just from that burst that was on the signature of the radar itself. And look at this mess. This is what, Kevin, you've been talking about for a while, especially that one that's been on the ground just on the south side of the IU area in Bloomington. Did a little bit of a cycle here in the last couple of scans, but looks like the next one here is starting to take over into Indiana, and obviously the one to Jackson and Jennings we're watching as well. Ryan, what do you got? Because I know you've been on the phone talking to several folks.
Yeah, and we've, of course, been watching all of your reports coming in via multiple sources here, including MPing. You can see all these little hail reports of pea-sized. New tornado warning just coming out, by the way, at the top of the screen there. And, of course, we've got the hail report, I should say, that's up near Lawrence and Jackson and Jennings County, Indiana. There's North Vernon there with a dime-size hail report. Kevin, we've got that new tornado warning coming out. We'll go straight to you.
Yeah, let's just jump to that. It's the continuation of what we had just a few minutes ago of that storm up in Jennings County. So now continuing into Bartholomew, Brown, and Decatur.
It's considerable.
This is observed, so that means it's on the ground, and it is considerable. So this, again, you can see the debris is being picked up by the radar. Let me move that so you can see the hook. We were just watching that, and that's just how fast it can happen. It went from not being as tight of a rotation to now just really hooking around. Again, this is Columbus, Indiana, so this is just a little bit farther north than where we were. Let me get your bearings here. There's North Vernon. That was the storm we were tracking. Again, we've triggered this warning across parts of Bartholomew County. You can see that debris. This is just outside of our viewing area up toward Columbus, Brown County, Shelby County, and then we work our way over into, again, the 8:45 warning. That includes parts of Jennings County. So you can see that sliver on the northern side of the county is why that new tornado warning came out. So the question is, and I'll center it up, is where will this storm go that is now observed? Remember, the one we were watching was the one down near North Vernon. That one was the one that was weakening and not so much. The one Brian was mentioning that looked like it was cycling again, that is this one. And you can see that sharp hook showing up near Bethany. It's going to move to Columbus. If you've ever been up I-65, you know right where that is, the spanning bridge there. Yes, they are in the line to see this tornado that's on the ground continue to move in that direction. So right up I-65, tornado moving your way, Columbus, Indiana, just north of, this is the county line that takes you down into Jackson County. That's our county, but we're, again, watching this storm because should it, again, linger just a little bit farther south, it could clip northern parts, a very fringe part of Jennings County. So that is the tornado warning that's in place for Jennings County.
And Kevin, they say
Indiana.
that's a cone-shaped tornado visible from the south side of Columbus in that confirmed report from the National Weather Service.
Wow. So we look at the debris. We can see pockets of where we may have some debris not far from Bethany. When we look at the velocity, it's very clear where we have that rotation showing up. You can see the bright reds and the bright greens side by side. That is the tornado that is on the ground. It's passing Bethany, Indiana, moving toward Columbus. Should move. It's too early to tell if it will actually hit Columbus or if it will go just south. It's too close to call, but it is a very uncomfortable place to be if you're in Columbus, Indiana. All of that zone should be in your tornado safe place. Sand Creek and extreme northern parts of Jennings County in your tornado safe place as that storm continues to work its way off to the east. And that storm is also moving roughly at about 45 miles per hour as it pushes eastbound. So a serious situation ongoing really just north of the viewing area, but certainly close enough that it could impact parts of extreme northern Jennings County. And let's go over to Brian.
Yeah, Kevin, watching the wind ticking up again. This is a closer view into eastern side here of Bullitt County into Spencer County. This is very close to Highway 44. Here's Highway 44. Here's Taylorsville Lake area. Surge of wind, I would say about 40 to 50 miles per hour being noted on the radar. These showers and storms kind of lined up here across Bullitt County all the way into Spencer. Trying to power back up again. You can see those little pockets of wind increasing once again. I know the Weather Service is looking at potentially, if they haven't done it already, issuing another warning that may come out to cover some of this stronger wind that is moving through Spencer County, Bullitt County, eventually into parts of Shelby County. Again, this is nothing too excessive, but it is enough to certainly cause some wind damage. And it's arriving in pockets. As I animate this, you'll be able to see how it'll certainly looks like it's calming down and then suddenly got another surge up in a different area. And that's because the jet itself overhead is really lifting up these clouds in a repeated fashion. So this is a little bit odd in the scenario. Normally, Kevin, we were talking about a rain event and getting rain cold air. There's so much moisture being pulled into our area right now and warmth that's kind of counteracting any kind of rain cold environment we've got. So you can have a downpour and immediately get a severe thunderstorm an hour later.
Yeah, and we're seeing that expand across the area. You note the new severe thunderstorm warning we have. It's just an expansion of what we were watching with those pockets of wind moving through. So that will continue to move off to the east as we track that across parts of Spencer County, Shelby County, now into Franklin County with the latest severe thunderstorm warning that's coming out. And we'll go into that storm in just a second, pointing out that the same threat exists with the powerful wind and the hail. We're also getting hail reports coming out of near Mount Washington, not far from where the terminal Doppler radar is located, and that's coming in as dime-size hail, so not far from Mount Washington. Well, we're at 8:14. The tornado warning, the first tornado warning for Jennings County is going to be allowed to expire. The one that includes the very northern sliver will continue. That is the strongest storm on the radar at this point. The storms across Jefferson County, moving through Shelby, Spencer, over into Franklin County, those have wind potential upwards of 50 to 60 miles per hour. They also have the potential to produce some small hail. Bowling Green on standby for an approaching tornado. That is a not confirmed tornado, but it has been at times. That storm is produced very strong winds and large hail as well. That's a large supercell storm that's been on the ground for quite some, or that has been on the radar for quite some time as it continues its movement off to the east. So certainly nothing to sneeze at. Should be in your tornado safe place there. Just south of Evansville, new tornado warning coming out. That's going to be rolling on across parts of northern Kentucky over the course of the next little bit as well. Could impact us as it gets into the western part of the viewing area shortly. We're looking at the whole radar. We've got these individual storms that are producing damage in places from wind to hail to tornadoes. The greatest potential for the tornado at this very moment is across the extreme northern part. I'm going to tilt the radar down to include Indianapolis. It's this storm right here, and I'm going to zoom in because we're on the air with tornado warning coverage that includes parts of Jennings County. Why? Well, you can see it there. This is a tornado that is on the ground moving right across Columbus, Indiana. If you've been up either 31 or I-65, you know where Columbus, Indiana is. This is the northern part of our viewing area, including Brewersville, and that is where we have the tornado warning, and that includes northern Jennings County, just north of North Vernon, just north of Hayden, as that storm makes its way off to the east, roughly at about 45 to 50 miles per hour. By far the strongest storm. I'll show you what it looks like on the velocity. It's very easy to pick out why the tornado warning is in place. You can see that tight rotation, and yes, it is moving right through Columbus, Indiana at this point. So you've got to be in your tornado safe place. Technically in the viewing area from Indianapolis, but it is just north of Seymour. So many friends and family. If you have them up in Columbus, give them a call. Let them know what's happening. It may be a little late for Columbus, but down the line, you should be warning those folks that severe weather is approaching. If you're in northern parts of Jennings County, don't let your guard down. While it looks like at this point this may stay just north of you, it's still a little early to tell. Oftentimes when these storms are in an environment of their own, they can start to turn right, and if that were to happen, it would certainly push it into that northern section of Jennings County. So that is the tornado warning that's in place until 8:45. Still about another 30 minutes on that. We go back to the view of the radar, where you can see not only the hook on the radar, but yes, hail and heavy rain falling across parts of the warned area that's moving off to the east. We go back to the home view, just to note that winds in Louisville have been as high as 37 miles an hour. Clusters of storms, some of these severe. We've been tracking the wind and the pockets of wind through Jefferson County, as well as Nelson, Bullitt, Spencer, Shelby, now Franklin County. This little, it's hard to describe because it's not a supercell. It's just a mess of rain and wind and small hail that's moving through that area, likely forming on a boundary that it is completely heavy rain, and it is putting down some pockets of heavy wind. How strong? 50 to 60 mile per hour winds in a few places. Not everywhere and not consistent, but sporadic and certainly damaging for the places that are seeing it. Let's go over to Brian Good with just an update on, again, the general setup of what we're faced with this evening. This is just now beginning, all within the last 40 minutes or so, Brian.
Yeah, exactly. And we're able to track different ways of looking at these storms, whether it's the height of them or whether they have hail, or in this case here, rotation and shear tracking. You can certainly see the one, that's what you're looking at, is the path of some of the strongest of those wind shear markers we had that moved across IU area. You see where it cycled right there on the edge of Bartholomew County, heading northern side of Jennings County. Here's the one that triggered into Jackson County, into Jennings. Notice the signal is not as strong as what it was a second ago, but still there as it's moving out of our area. Notice the signal, though, for the severe weather into the Louisville Metro and to Taylorsville Lake. Yes, you got markers indicating some wind shear, but the winds have been more straight line wind, downburst type scenarios, and not as strong of a signal. Meanwhile, we get to the south. And here's where we're starting to see the supercell that's moving into Bowling Green. But notice the shear markers that are going up into parts of Edmonson County, Butler County, and Hart County. Now, we're just now starting to see the radar beginning to light up in that area. Let me show you what that looks like. And just now starting to see thunderstorms growing here. So we need to watch that. I think it's relatively elevated at the moment. But in Hart County and Munfordville, if that can root down a bit more, we may have an issue of a severe thunderstorm developing in, say, in southern LaRue, northwest Greene, and eastern Hart. That may be next in line downwind here from this big supercell moving through Bowling Green. So these markers like this, we indicate the wind shear like this, Kevin, can be a good indicator of what's about to happen next as well.
We'll keep a close eye on all of the storms that are ongoing. Promises to be a busy night. Let me explain what you're looking at. Obviously, we've got the radars behind us, but in that box, you saw a lot of police lights. That's where we have a tree down, not far from the Franciscan Kitchen, down near downtown Louisville. So a wind gust last reported at the airport was 37 miles per hour. So we have had some damage where wind is taking down some trees. That's in those pockets of wind that Brian's been pointing hang out. We've also had the storm tracker deployed where we've been down in parts of Bullitt and northern Nelson County, keeping an eye on the skies there. Things have calmed down just a bit in terms of hail. We had nickel-size hail reported and dime-size hail reported near Mount Washington. So again, skies darkening, heavy rain, pockets of wind, small hail. That's what we're getting out of the severe thunderstorm warning that we have. Focused on what's happening to the south, severe thunderstorm warning, and still a tornado warning just off to the west of Bowling Green. And then farther to the north, in the northern fringe of our viewing area, we have a tornado warning that is still in place across extreme northern Jennings County. And this is a tough call because this storm has had a history. This is past Brown County at this point, moving up through Bartholomew County. This is Columbus, Indiana, the core of the rotation passing by. We've got the inflow to the storm, and velocity shows it best. You can see the rotation just passing right over top of Columbus for that most part. That's going to move across 31, US 31, just north of Sand Creek. It'll push toward Clifty. Big push of wind with that as well. So we get the wind on the front side and then the possible rotation that will be making its way off to the east. That's the tornado warning. Why are we on the air? Tornado warning includes a very sliver or fringe part of northern Jennings County. Can't rule out that this will clip that area, so we'll be here to keep you updated on that. That's the warning that we have for the tornadoes. Back to our radar view, back to our home view we go, and you're going to notice with that additional severe thunderstorm warnings, including the metro and points farther to the south and moving over toward the Cincinnati area. You can see the one in Bowling Green now extending with a severe thunderstorm warning. That's just south of Grayson County and just off to the south and west of Hart County. Wouldn't be surprised next in line would be Hart, then Greene, and moving over toward Adair. We're getting funnel cloud reports out of that storm up around Bartholomew County. That's up where Columbus is located. So no longer on the ground, but certainly cause for concern when you have the funnel cloud. Could touch down at any moment. Those are a rundown of the warnings that we have. Additional thunderstorms are developing, and we will continue to see the development of these thunderstorms as the evening wears on. This will eventually create a solid line of showers and thunderstorms that stretches from Indianapolis through Evansville, Paducah, down into northern parts of Arkansas, and that will be moving in our direction as the night wears on. So if you've been watching through the week, we said there'd be likely for this second round of storms, because this morning we had the round that we expected early at around 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 a.m., right? So that was round one. Round two, we said, would have two components to it. Individual supercells that would probably precede the line of storms. So it's playing out as we expected. It's a little bit later in time than we expected, and the reason for that is because of how long the clouds lingered this afternoon, or early this morning into the early afternoon. So everything was off just probably by about 2 to 3 hours. But in the grand scheme of things, the modeling of the data and our forecast is pretty much on track at this point. Brian?
Yeah, we're getting a number report, by the way, of power outages going up. More than 2,000 customers in the Lake Forest area. Long portions of 64 there and the Snyder Freeway. I think that was part of that downburst wind that we were tracking earlier this evening, going back to the radar loop. Had been roughly, I would say, about 7:30 to about 7:50 is when that burst of wind really just raced across eastern Jefferson County. So I think that's the majority of those outages came from that. That is now to the east, but that's still a very strong cluster of storms, roughly around Mount Washington, heading into Taylorsville Lake, all the way into the capital. So still need to watch these because they could easily produce more damaging winds and even some hail. And we don't have any statements yet on Hart County, but this one continues to grow and is showing signs of develop more and more pockets of wind with that. So again, a big heads up, southern LaRue County, northwest areas of Greene. You may be next in line in warnings ahead of the bigger supercell that is still producing tornado warnings now, including parts of the Bowling Green area there.
Yeah, they've just reissued that to be a tornado warning for Bowling Green, so you'll see that down to the south. When we focus that way, that is that same supercell that's been coming out of Missouri, has had a history of producing on and off damage along its track. If you have family or friends down at Western or in Bowling Green, let them know know that that storm is tornado warned at this point. Radar indicated that warning will continue as it moves off to the east, and that one's moving at about 35 to 45 miles per hour as it pushes through Bowling Green down into southern Kentucky. So the only tornado warning in our viewing area happens to be that sliver across northern Jennings County. That will continue with that storm moving likely right along that county line. Boy, that's a close call there for the folks in Jennings County. Additional warnings continue back across western Kentucky and southwest Indiana, where that storm is going to move just south of the Evansville area. We have a number of reports coming in. Union County, Kentucky, reporting a tornado that has touched down from the emergency manager there. That was roughly at about 8:24, so that report just now coming in. So we do have a few reports of real-time tornado information on the ground, and that one was out of Union County near Morganfield. So let me zoom out or zoom into the radar. I'm going to go back to the north, just check in on each of these storms, let you know what's sort of the plan would be if you're in this. I think that this storm will go north of Jennings County. So outside of that, I feel pretty confident that as this continues to move, yes, there is rotation still with that storm. There is a funnel cloud with that storm. It's broadened out a little bit, but we're still seeing some decent rotation. Again, very close to the county line, so we cannot rule it out at this point. So that tornado warning holds until 8:45. for the northern part of Jennings County. Let me go just a little bit farther to the south, and you can see they've just updated that no longer to include Jennings County. So as close as it is, Weather Service fairly confident it's going to stay just north. So the good news is the tornado threat in terms of warnings has ended for our viewing area at the moment, but it very well could come back around. Back to the radar view, noting that that is north of Jennings County. All right, that's good news. Let's go back to the home view, pointing out that we have additional severe thunderstorm warnings. One moving away from us towards Cincinnati. The other one now clearing Jefferson County, but moving across parts of Spencer, Shelby, and Franklin County.
And that may get expanded a little more into Shelbyville based on the wind here.
Farther to the north?
Yeah, a little bit to the north, yeah.
Now, let me just zoom into that. We can spend just a moment talking about that. We'll check in with Ryan here in just a second. I'm going to zoom into that. We've got some pockets of heavy wind or strong wind with this part of the storm. I'll put the velocity on so you can see it. If we go to the velocity area, you're going to see the wind push through. And you can see not far from Olive Branch, that would be a push of wind. Another one over near Harrisonville. So as Brian was mentioning, this is expanding to the north. The warning technically does not go up to Shelbyville. It sort of cuts off right at the top of that push of wind. The idea is that it could get expanded further north, so it includes Shelbyville. Bottom line is strong winds are ongoing across southern Shelby County, along and south of Shelbyville Road, and along and south of Interstate 64. Let's check in with Ryan Hoke. He's been on the phone with a lot of police, fire, EMS, emergency managers. What do you have?
Yeah, I've just been off the phone there with Spencer County. They say that they're in pretty good shape, as well as J-Town. Just got off the phone with J-Town Dispatch. They say they don't have any damage reports at this time. We do have a few viewers who have sent in some photos from the North Vernon area. You can see the big storm structure just north of North Vernon, Indiana, a little bit earlier. Thanks to Jacob for sending that in. Nickel-size hail from Holly and Joe up there in North Vernon. You can see it there in the grass. And finally, I wanted to go over some of the power outages. We know we've got about 2,100 folks without power here in Jefferson County right now. Many of those a little closer to like Lake Forest and eastern Jefferson County near the Snyder. We don't want to forget about our friends up in Jennings County. 4% of Jennings County is without power. That equates to about 659 customers. If you go to Jackson County here, the Seymour area, there you go. Almost 2% without power. That's about 495 folks. If we go over to Lawrence County, that's Bedford, that's Mitchell. They have about 2,343 folks without power. So a somewhat significant power outage there in Lawrence County, Indiana. Avoca, Bedford, Mitchell, Bono, Spice Valley, Guthrie. Pretty decent power outage because of those storms that raked through the US 50 corridor there just a little bit ago, guys. So those power outage numbers will continue to increase a bit as the data catches up to what's going on now.
All right, our plan is going to be to go back to NBC shortly here. I want to recap what's going on. I'll go over to Brian here in just a second as well. But the fact is there are no tornado warnings in place across the viewing area. And the severe thunderstorm warnings we can cover on our stream. And all of those are moving away from the metro. And while we do have some strong storms with wind pushing through parts of Shelby and eventually into Franklin County and additional development going on to the south, we're going to continue to watch the storms, and we will continue tracking them live on our digital assets, and that's all of our apps and online. So if you have the ability to watch and you're interested in weather information, we want to be able to give that to you. But if you're interested in catching up with your programs on NBC, we're going to let you watch those unless there's additional tornado warnings or impressive severe thunderstorm warnings that come on that we need to interrupt for. Before we jump to that, let me go to Brian just to make sure he has anything else to add. Okay. And then we'll wrap it up for a temporary amount of time, I have a feeling.
Yeah, temporary indeed. Yeah, 2 pockets of wind right now that I'm looking at. We've been talking about the one in Shelby County, getting right on the edge of the severe thunderstorm warning. It may be just below severe limits, but it's close enough that certainly it can knock over some limbs. Again, we've had some heavy rain this morning, so the ground's very saturated. So it doesn't take as much of a strong wind to cause wind damage in this kind of scenario. The other pocket of wind just out of E-Town heading toward the Boston area as you move into Nelson County, that has already been measured at 50 miles per hour. In fact, I'll show you what the Skytrack looks like there as you move into E-Town, which is kind of a spooky looking shot. This is looking to the northeast. It says Bloomington. Yeah, sorry about that. But that's actually in E-Town we're looking at, where you can see the thunderstorms in the distance. And again, winds right now roughly at about 50 miles per hour in that area. So just pockets of wind we'll be watching, Kevin, but I got a feeling when cells back to the west, they begin to approach the areas we into this evening. That's where things will begin to ramp up once again.
All right. Appreciate that analysis there, Brian. When we were watching, you see the police lights. If you're just joining us, that's where we had some downed trees here in Louisville. We had winds up to near 40 miles an hour measured. Some areas could have been slightly higher than that. You can see the storm tracker is out and about. Logan Perrone's on board that. We'll be watching the weather. We're going to continue with nonstop weather coverage on Wave Weather Now. You can find that by logging on to wave3.com or on the Wave or Wave News app, Wave Weather app, or the Wave News app. Scroll down, click Watch Now. We'll get you to NBC for a period of time. We'll jump back in as needed. For all of the Wave Storm Tracking team, I'm Kevin Harned.
DNA.
Coverage for southern Adair County. So we are tracking nonstop weather coverage, and we have been doing so on our streaming channel. But now we're back on Wave with tornado warning for the southern part of the viewing area. If you've been watching the stream, we have been talking about Adair County. We've also been talking about Breckenridge County, and I'll tell you more about that in just a second. The first warning and the only tornado warning that we have for the viewing area goes until 10:15. That's 9:15 Central Daylight Time, and that does include Adair County. When we zoom out on the map, you're going to see that is the southernmost part of our viewing area. That tornado warning has gone through Bowling Green. It's been on the radar for hours now. It has produced damage, and it continues to move to the east, roughly at about 45 to 55 miles per hour. As that moves through, it will clip the southern part of Adair County. Notice up against parts of Breckenridge and Grayson counties, we also have a tornado warning, and that too has been on the radar for hours now, and that will likely continue its trek as it moves into the western part of our viewing area. So we've been tracking all of these storms for hours now. We're coming up at 9:30, so we're getting close to the bottom of the hour. We've passed by with storms moving through the southern part of Jefferson County with winds over 50 miles an hour. We've had a number of power outages reported with that. I'm going to stop the radar view and allow me to zoom into a few places just to show what we're tracking. As we go into the zoom feature, we'll start with the tornado warning that's in place. This will include the severe thunderstorm warning for Hart County, Greene County, tornado warning, southern Adair County. Notice the hail possibility with this storm. In fact, if we look inside that storm with our hail scope, you'll be able to see that hail is a big potential with this storm, and so is the rotation that we're seeing. Upwards of golf ball size hail with that storm as it moves just north of US 68. That's going to take it just north of Edmonton, and if you follow that track, it would take it south of Columbia near the breeding area of southern Adair County. So that's one area of concern, hail. The other happens to be the strong wind that we have and the rotation. You can see that appendage. This is where we would be watching the rotation, moving past Glasgow, moving through the Barron County, Edmonton County area, and then over into southern parts of Adair County, south of Columbia. This is south of Greensburg. This is south of Munfordville. But you get the idea. That is pretty sharp rotation showing up where we have the ability to see that potential tornado. It's not confirmed. It's radar indicated as we have on the radar at this point. Just to give you the stats on that, let me go back, and I'm going to zoom back into it so we can see all of the information that you need. As we zoom back into the tornado warning storm, you'll see that it's for Adair, Barron, Cumberland, and Metcalf. 1.75 is a golf ball size hail possible with that. And again, that's in place until 9:15. The other warning that we're concerned with sits back out to the west of us, and that is going to move into parts of Breckinridge County and perhaps northern Grayson County. This storm has had a history of producing some damage as it passed by Owensboro with hail and high wind on the northern edge of this. And let's just go back into the velocity, again, showing the wind. And you're going to see on that, we have that sharp push of wind coming. It's not too far away because that storm's moving at about 60, 65 miles an hour. That's going to move right through Fordsville, and then it would push across the county lines that take it into southern Breckinridge County, northern Grayson County. Let me go over to Brian Good, who's also analyzing both storms that we have across the area.
All right, Kevin. The one down in a cross areas of Barron County moving eventually into Adair. To put a timing on this, this is moving about 45 miles per hour. So if it holds on its current track and speed, heads up for you guys. You got about 15 minutes. It'll be arriving in the community of Cork on the eastern side there as you move out of Barron County and you get into Chance about 3 minutes after the hour in Glens Fork. One of the last spots, again, if the circulation, the core of what we're worried about as far as a tornado, it would be very close to Glens Fork at about 9 minutes after 9 local time. Now, as far as the hail core portion of this, which is a separate issue altogether, which is, Kevin mentioned, can easily produce up to golf ball size hail as it tracks off to the east, about the same speed, about 45 miles per hour. This is a little more of a threat for Columbia. So right now, if it stands on its current track and speed, about 53 minutes after the hour in Gradyville and Columbia itself, right at the top of the hour, that hail core of up to golf ball size hail potentially could move into your area. One thing that's been interesting to watch, we're able to track what we call rotation on this, shear markers. And the storm, as it moved over Bowling Green, boy, we talked a lot about Bowling Green. Look how it weakened a bit, but just in the past few scans, it started to uptick right over Barron County, and that's the reason why that new tornado warning came out, which takes us all the way into the southern part there of Adair County. So that's been the trend with these long-lived machines. These are the drivers, these giant supercells. The tornadoes don't always stay intact the whole time, Kevin, but the driver's still going, and that's the reason why I've got to keep an eye on them until that entire complex, the main cell itself, falls apart, and this one is in no hurry to do that.
Yeah, and they're moving anywhere between 35 to 55 miles per hour in general, so they will move relatively fast. When you look at southern Indiana, there's not a lot going on in the northern part of the viewing area. I'm going to take you on a radar tour here, and then we'll work our way back down to the tornado warning that still sits just outside of the viewing area, but you're under the warning because it's moving in. So let me just zoom into the cluster of storms that sits just out to the west of Louisville. These are not strong across parts of English, Indiana. New warning just coming out, so let me go to that, and we'll pop that up, and you're going to notice severe thunderstorm warning now for parts of Adair Green. So they're just expanding the northern edge of that farther to the east. And again, as Brian was explaining, that's because of the hail and wind threat. While the greatest rotations on the tail end and moving across the southern part of the county, the rest of the county could experience high wind and hail out of that storm. And that's not only Adair County, but that's also Greene County, Metcalf, and Russell out of the viewing area. Comes with observed, so we know that it's happening, right? And this is winds of 70 miles an hour and golf ball size hail. So there really is a little time to figure out, well, maybe it's going to happen or maybe it's not. No, it is happening, and you need to make sure that the car is under cover. You still have some time. I mean, this is moving through. If you're in Greensburg, you have a lot less time than you're over at Holmes Bend or Columbia, but if you have the ability to put the car under something sturdy, that would be wise. Notice that the winds still ticking up 70-mile-per-hour winds. And then, of course, you get on the southern side of this, and that's where we have the tornado warning. So just in general, let me just put on the wind field for you. When we check the velocity, we're going to have these pockets of heavy wind stretching through center up toward Fry. That will likely push across and move into Holmes and Columbia sporadically, so not everywhere. Greensburg likely to see some strong winds too. That will be moving through with wind and hail. Let me show you the hail potential with this storm. We can go in fact, I can look at the reports just to see if we've seen any reports of recent time, and notice Cave City reporting large hail just north of Glasgow. Greensburg, hail. So we have seen some hail already reported. And back to the Imping reports. Let me just see if we have any hail or wind reports out of Imping. Takes it just a second to pop on. Notice if we did, it would be just south of Center. That's a pretty nice bullseye for large hail right there. And what about wind? Let me just see. It's doubtful that we're going to have that. We go back to our reports and let's look at the Imping wind reports. And here they'll pop on. Takes just a second. No out of that at this point, but it's still a little early in the game. Sometimes those are just a bit delayed. When we check the radar, that is the zone right there. I'll keep my finger there and you can see it where we would have the greatest potential, and it's growing. Now we have that strong inflow into the storm. It's the southernmost storm, so it's feeding. It has nothing to stop what's coming into it. This really could turn into something to be rough as it continues to move. Already is in terms of hail. Let me check the velocity once again. If we had the rotation, it would be there, and you can see that. So this storm is intensifying. It's moving near Edmonton. That's going to be where it moves through, and then it will cross the county line. It's going to stay, the rotation part of this is staying south of Greene County, but it will not stay south of Adair County. It's going to move through not far from Breeding and probably just south of Columbia as we track that storm off to the east, roughly 35 to 45 miles per hour. Continuing to tighten up both with the rotation and intensify in terms of hail. This is the storm to watch. Let me go back. Brian's got his eyes on that one. While he's watching that, let me go back to the radar, and I'm going to go back to the one moving closer to Breckenridge County just to give you an idea of how far away those storms are. Here in Louisville, starting to see showers and a few thunderstorms spread across the area. Our eyes go to the west with this corridor of stronger storms. These will be moving in. And I'll zoom in so we can see again the rotation with these storms. As we zoom in, not as clear of a picture as what we saw to the south. This one is a little more muddy, as we'd say. It's sort of spread out. There's not a lot of organization to it. If we were to try to pick out the wind velocity, if we were to see some of that rotation, we would expect it right in this area. That's just near or just south of the Whitesville area. That's going to move it toward Askin. This is just outside of the viewing area. Here's the county line for Breckenridge County. This is Grayson County. So we'll be watching that move near Atterburg and Askin. Still a little bit of ways away, so you have time to prepare. But just know that if you're in Hardinsburg, south of Hardinsburg, if you're in the Rough River Lake area down towards Short Creek or Cave Creek, that will be the zone. Cave Spring would be in that line that eventually you're going to have to pay close attention to because this storm is moving in. That one's moving roughly at about 45 miles per hour as well. All right, let me go back to our home view, and then we'll check in with Brian. He's analyzing the storm off to our south. Brian, that storm continues to intensify even as we speak.
Yeah, it looks like it's tracking right along 68, right over the Wisdom community as you head into the eastern side there of Berrien County and moving east. It's out of Glasgow now, southeast of Echo. Again, right along Wisdom. And 640 is one of the crossroads right there at 68. So if there's still something on the ground here, or potentially something that could be on the ground based on this rotation, to be right in that spot. And based on the hail size going up and the hail signature going up, that's usually an indicator that the rotation is strong enough now. We really need to watch the tornado threat carefully. And you can see this is going to be tracking right along 68, and eventually it'll be heading right into looks like the Neal area, and then right into Spartanburg itself as we venture into the next, I would say, 20, 30 minutes on the southern side there of Adair County. Again, I think that hail core, Kevin's right, that cell, this is a classic supercell signature here. We've got to really watch this, and I don't think yet we've got any kind of debris signature. Let me check and see if anything's been showing up. This is relatively, there's definitely some low values there. Right where that's tracking on the southern and eastern side there of Barron County. So we'll be monitoring that as it crosses 68, Kevin, right over a community. It's been relatively over a wooded area for a bit, but as it heads over Wisdom and then heading in the western side there of the county line in Adair, got to feel like some of those reports of wind damage may go up.
Yeah, and I'm seeing wind damage coming out of parts of southern Indiana, too. Let's bring in Ryan Hoke. I see Pekin, Indiana, with trees into a gas line there. It looks like additional 50-plus mile-per-hour winds near Borden that's caused a tree onto a house. So even where we have no warnings across parts of Pekin, Indiana, or Clark County, western Clark County, we're still seeing some of those strong wind gusts as we focus on the warnings that we have, Ryan.
Yeah, this was about a half hour ago. We've got quite a few damage reports out of Du Bois County as well, like part of a roof off of a house near St. Henry, limbs down at that location. On State Road 64, a vehicle hit a tree in the roadway and the occupant might have been injured. Again, this is Du Bois County. We're talking about that tree in the gas line on Crest Drive, gas smell in the area. This is in Pekin. That's in Washington County, Indiana. Huge oak tree down on a home in Borden, possibly a 50-plus mile-per-hour wind gust there. So, you know, we've got trees and power lines down in Pekin as well, trees down on Beck's Mill in Salem. I mean, that's a lot of reports that came in here within just the 10 minutes that have passed here about half an hour ago when those storms moved through and they were severe. They were quite severe. So as those reports come in, we'll relay those, guys.
All right, appreciate that, Ryan. Thanks. Looking at the radar, again, to our south is where we go for where we currently have the greatest potential in the viewing area because it's moving into southern parts of Adair County. We're going to come back to you in Breckenridge and Grayson in just a second. But notice, again, as Brian was pointing out, this storm continues to intensify. There's the county line right here, so it has a little bit more time. But, boy, if you're in Edmonton, you've got to be in your tornado safe place. This is a bad spot to be. That storm's going to be moving in, and we've got very strong winds down with that storm. You know, as we look farther to the south and that storm presses through, you're going to need to make sure you are in your tornado safe place from Randolph to Edmonton, pushing across the county line that takes you into Nell. That's the southern part of Adair County, Breeding, and then over to Sparksville. All of those locations have the potential to see what appears to be the tornado on the radar, even some hail moving past Beachville. That will take it not too far from Gradyville over the course of the next 15 to 30 minutes. So that's one storm. That is a tornado warned storm. It's radar indicated, so we do not.
Sorry, I was going to mention that the winds, again, are going up. They issued a new warning for that pocket of wind on the northern cell too, Kevin. But we're seeing those reports now of winds that are gusting to severe limits, and even in Henryville. And there's no warning in that area. So I just want to make sure to express that that's something we're watching. I'm on the radar out of Mount Washington. If you see that pocket of wind right here.
Yeah,
I'm
well,
right
that's
on the
what we were
edge of
talking
that.
about, like 50-plus mile-an-hour winds with that.
Right on the northern side of that, and you can see that second pocket's moving in too. So I got a feeling they're going to have to issue a whole other warning here. But even if they don't, just go ahead and get in your safe spot in the northern part of the metro as the winds again right at severe limits.
Well,
and
it's important to point out
tree damage Ryan was talking about.
And
too.
there's no rain with it.
Right,
Very
exactly.
Little. So
Yeah.
that's just how impressive the wind field is, even with very little rain. Either the downbursts are coming out, or even a little bit of light rain is dragging down very heavy winds. The latest warning being issued takes us up to Corydon, Dogwood, Laconia. That crosses the river into Brandenburg. Buck Grove goes just north of Irvington, includes Freimeyer. This is again, severe thunderstorm warning that comes with the tag tornado possible, 1.5 hail, 60-mile-per-hour winds. That warning is in place and will be until 10 o'clock. So new severe thunderstorm warning coming out. This is again to our south. This includes Litchfield, so this is southern Grayson County. So that will be in place until 10:30. That's the warning until 10:30. Comes with considerable and 70-mile-per-hour winds. That's the one that's replacing the tornado warning. It looks like that may be coming in, but not for sure. Let me just go back to the home view so we can get our bearings together on where all the warnings are lined up. So the tornado warning sits just to the west. So they may continue that tornado warning across northern Grayson, southern Breckenridge. We'll watch for that. But regardless, with that Boeing segment coming in, very powerful wind could rake across southern half of Grayson County, and that would be that 70-mile-per-hour wind threat that's caused considerable damage, and that's what we're looking at there. The tornado warning to the south, and here in Louisville, I don't know where the maps go. This happened a while ago. There's the watch that's in place, 2 different timings, west of I-65 until 11 o'clock, east until 3. Here's the radar back again, and you'll notice some of those storms building into western Jefferson County. So let me zoom into those as we look across parts of Jefferson County. Again, doesn't take much to get very strong winds, and I think this is why we've been seeing, even with the lighter echoes on the radar building north, very strong winds reaching the surface. So for any of this, I would think a warning would be valid, and that's certainly into Floyd County, moving into the western part of Jefferson County. Doesn't look all that impressive on the radar, but the winds are impressive, and we could be tapping into that. Wouldn't be much to get a 40 to 60 mile per hour wind out of that, which could cause some problems. So back to our view. I'm going to pan this around. We'll start with the ones closest to Louisville. Should this hold, we would push this into Jefferson County. Right now, it's for northern Meade County, over into Breckenridge County. Cluster of storms pressing through Breckenridge County. Tornado warning near Fordsville. That's a very powerful pocket of wind there. We're likely going to have to fill the gap of southern Breckenridge and northern Grayson with either a tornado warning or a severe thunderstorm warning as that storm makes its motion to the east. Our view to the south shows, let me show you why that's a warning there. You can see where this is bowing out near Central City. That is pressing to the east, going to move through Morgantown, Welch's Creek, could hit Litchfield. Most of that should be just south. Certainly along the Western Kentucky Parkway, pretty powerful blast of wind coming your way, could exceed 70 miles an hour. New severe thunderstorm warning coming out. Get to that in just a second. You can see the latest one to our south includes parts of Greene County, southern Taylor, all of Adair. Tornado warning now moving through Edmonton. That is a strong signature where we've had large hail and the tornado potential. Let me go to this and we'll come back to that warning. The latest severe thunderstorm warning, well, remember we said we were going to have to fill that gap. They did that with a severe thunderstorm warning that comes with the tag tornado possible. 60 mile per hour winds, 1-inch hail. So that will not be a tornado warning, but it's a severe thunderstorm warning with that tornado possible tag. All right, we'll come back to that in a second. Let's go back to where we were, and that's looking at this sharp hook that we see on the radar, and we got the velocity we can show. Again, keep your eyes there. That is the rotation. Possible tornado in Edmonton. That will be crossing over. This is the county line that takes you into Adair County. The strongest part of this likely to go just south of Columbia. So we're watching this in particular. That is the strongest storm that we have on the radar. When we zoom into that, let me name just a few places. In this zone, you really do have to be in your tornado safe place. This storm shows great potential as it continues to move, and it has been moving off to the east. So I'm going to track this, and let me just pan this over, and we'll put a storm track on the center of this storm and call out a few places. So we'll go in, draw this from right here in Edmonton, and we'll track this just out to the east. And these are places like Nell and Breeding and Sparksville and Chance. Anywhere between now and about 9:15 would be the time to be in your tornado safe place. Go now, stay there until it passes. It's not going to last a lot longer. These are in your time if you're in that area. So that's Central Daylight Time. It would be anywhere between 9:58 and 10:13 for us here in Louisville, all right? So that's one area to watch. When we go back to the wider view, you're going to see the thunderstorm warning stacking up back to the west of us that are going to rake across central Kentucky and likely include us here in Louisville. Brian's keeping a close eye on the winds out of those storms. Let's go over and get a check of that with him. And I see the lightning on the SkyTrack cameras, so it didn't take long for the storms to fire even across western Jefferson County.
Yeah, this is the core of it here the next 1 to 2 hours, guys. Let me show you the wind fields. This has been wild. The damage reports we're getting trees down. Don Gray Road in Borden, Indiana, Perry Crossing, Slate Run in Sellersburg, right around 31 itself, Hebron Church Road into Henryville. Look at this pocket of wind that was showing up right around 9:38 to about 9:45 that was scooting across Washington County, around Borden, into northern Clark County and southern Scott. That looks to be where we have picked up most of the wind damage in the past 30 minutes. Has been a separate area that has had very little rain with that batch. Just now started to rain, in fact. Now, while we're tracking that, big heads up in Louisville. I'm already measuring winds now off the ground at more than 70 miles per hour with this batch of wind moving in across the western side there of Meade County. Again, that's off the ground. We're waiting for some ground truth to that. But this is a big heads up for Louisville.
Yeah, and I tell you, while
this
you're
is not going to be a warning for that.
While you're zoomed into that, Brian, look at the winds in western Breck County, too. They're really howling.
They're ramping up big time in that area. Let me zoom in down to that spot. I'm on a different radar, sorry, I'm on the terminal. But you can see that pocket right in that area moving into Meade County, Breckenridge. But I think the next in line, Kevin, I think we've been talking about this, it's going to be up and down all 65. So I think we're going to have a whole batch of warnings. Bullitt County and Jefferson likely will get issued. So if you have had to have much in the way of storm action in your area yet, you likely will see that change here very soon. So go ahead and be just weather aware, even though the radar doesn't look very mean in terms of the rainfall side. This has still got a strong push of wind with it. That is obviously causing wind damage, even in areas that have not had a warning that's been out. So just be weather aware for the next 30 to 45 minutes, especially. But Louisville, I think, is next in line there.
All right, we'll keep an eye on that. I want to take you farther to the south, where we have the tightening rotation in southern Adair County. This is a real concern for folks in the southern part of the viewing area. We mentioned Edmonton. Look at that sharp hook on that storm. This is showing a classic sign of rotation, as well as the potential for the tornado. When we look at the velocity, you're going to notice the gate-to-gate wind passing by Edmonton. That is likely a tornado. It very well may be on the ground. If you're in Nell, you have to be at the lowest level, away from windows. Let me see if we can put on the debris tracker to see in this area if we see, yes, we possibly do have debris. So that tells us in what would be a relatively rural area that we could have some debris being lofted. What that means is the tornado could very well be on the ground. That is one place that we've noted over the last half hour to 45 minutes as we've been tracking this out of Hart County, pushing it through the Edmonton area, where, yes, we very well may have a tornado on the ground. We haven't had confirmed sightings of it, but based on the radar, both with the debris, which we'll wait till the next signature comes in, but that lines up pretty good right there with what would be the velocity. And let me pop that on. Again, keep an eye. Right here's where we're looking, and we pop the velocity on, and it should be right there with the rotation, and it is.
That's 86 mile per hour rotation, by the way.
Yeah, so when we're looking at the gate-to-gate rotation, the wind speeds that the radar is measuring, you have to keep in mind the radar is a bit far away for this county, so the radar is coming out of Fort Knox. That means as we go out with distance, we're shooting a little higher into the atmosphere, but regardless, it is impressive. And for it to see that debris, that is impressive as well. So this is a high concern as it moves into the southern part of the viewing area. This is the county line, Adair County, Nell, Breeding, Sparkville, to the basement, the lowest level. If you don't have a basement, an interior wall or room, could be under a closet, could be under a staircase, could be in a bathroom. Just stay away from windows. That's going to be the important part. This may go down as the biggest storm we have on radar for our viewing area today as it makes its trek farther to the east. While I'm tracking that, I'm going to turn it back over to Brian Good, who's keeping an eye on high winds moving into the metro area. Brian, I'm going to keep an eye on this. You take us through Jefferson County.
All right, for Louisville and in southern Indiana especially, again, we've been having several reports of trees down across roadways, power lines down into parts of Washington County into Clark County. This was an area that saw a burst of wind about 10 to 15 minutes ago, that bright pink there, almost a white color in northern Clark County. That is now heading into Trimble County. If that pocket of wind is still there, that's where it is. In the meantime, this is an obvious pocket of wind that has a severe thunderstorm with it. It's just west of Louisville Metro. You probably have heard the thunder outside, an amazing light show. We've been watching our camera feeds here, so lightning, very vivid. This wall of wind heading right along the I-65 corridor. Even if we don't get a warning for that, I suspect we will, just based on the radar interpretation. But even if we don't, you're still still going to have the potential to get winds that could get up to 60 miles per hour and cause some tree damage there. So while we have this massive supercell and our southern counties heading to Adair County, we also have some strong winds in the metro. So really 2 different areas we're watching carefully for the next 30 minutes or so.
Yeah, and we've got our eyes on both, so just keep it tuned here. You're going to notice looking at that radar view.
New warning coming out.
And I don't see it yet. This is going to be
Breckenridge.
Tornado warning?
Yeah.
Okay, so new tornado warning. There it is. Let's just go to it. This is going to be that area we were watching across Breckenridge, Grayson, and Hardin County. Again, this one's radar indicated up to 1-inch hail, 9:15 on the expiration time on that. That's Central Daylight Time. So again, 10:15 Louisville time. We're going to track that storm off to the east as well. That storm moving at 65 miles an hour. So that forward motion, an indicator of just how strong those winds are. This will take it south of Hardinsburg, moving through Centerview over toward Howe Valley, Eastview. If it holds together, it would likely stay just south of Elizabethtown. This is moving again across parts of southern Breckenridge, very sliver of northern Grayson, and into western Hardin County. I'm going back to the south because this is urgent. You've got to be in your tornado safe place if you're in southern Adair County. Family or friends, call them, let them know this tornado is continuing to tighten up. It's now moving across into western and the southern part of Adair County. Nell in Adair County is getting nailed right now. You can see Sparksville. You're going to be in that line as well. Breeding may go just north of you, too close to call, but it is a very serious situation of what's happening in Adair County with that view of the radar in terms of velocity and debris. We're looking for something that doesn't match. It's a little less defined. Remember a while ago we saw more of those blues. What we're looking at in the debris tracker is something that doesn't belong. Raindrops, we know they're uniform. When it looks uniform, it's good. When we see something that stands out as the radar hits it and bounces back and it says, wait a minute, that was far more dense than a raindrop, and it paints it in as blue, then we see debris. The good news is that has eased just a bit. So what may have been on the ground near Edmonton may be lifted. And I'm going to go through that latest scan there. What we do notice is that on the velocity, we can clearly see where we would have that rotation, and that is going to be moving through the Nell area. I'm going to go back to the reflectivity. That's the radar view. And with that, on the northern side, we would have the heaviest of rain moving toward Milltown, Gradyville, over toward Columbia, and then on the downside of this, the possible rotation moving through Nell. You can see the tornado warning includes the southern part of Adair County. Severe thunderstorm warning takes care of the rest. Going back to our home view, we've been focused on 2 different areas, and now we have 2 separate tornado warnings to talk about. We just covered the one in the southernmost part of the viewing area. Now moving into the western part, moving through Breckenridge County and into parts of Hardin and northern Grayson County is another tornado warning. I'm going to zoom into this. I'll talk about that. Brian's going to, again, talk more about wind that's moving closer to the metro. Fordsville, you've been hit more than once with heavy wind. That's pushing through, now moving over toward Axtell.
Under a severe thunderstorm warning for Louisville Metro now.
That new warning is just coming out for Louisville, and this is Jefferson County's play at severe thunderstorm warnings for strong winds moving in our direction. That's upwards of 70-mile-per-hour winds possible with that, coming with that considerable tag. Again, over 1 million people in the path of this one warning that not only includes Jefferson County, but it also includes a chunk of Bullitt, Clark, and Hardin counties. So a number of folks in the path of this storm. Could see hail, but the bigger threat's the wind, and we've already seen damage. Prepare for power outages in places as this moves through Jefferson County, Bullitt County, and eventually over into even parts of Spencer and northern Nelson County as this storm continues to make its way off to the east. This storm also moving roughly at about 50 to 60 miles per hour. Back to the tornado warning. I'm going to put on the velocity so we can see some of the wind that is fueling the rotation, not far from the Axtell area. If you're familiar with this zone or part of our viewing area, Hardinsburg, Axtell, Rough River Lake over the 2 county lines from Breckenridge into Grayson, And you can see Short Creek, again, the bulk of the rotation right over the Axtell area, going to push that toward Constantine and then over into Hardin County. That will cross over. You can see the warnings that have been issued up into Jefferson County as severe. Possible winds up to 70 miles per hour. At this point, we've already noted that 50-mile-per-hour winds with no rain at all earlier in Jefferson County and in southern Indiana have already done a number in terms of knocking down trees and power lines. So it stands to reason that we could be seeing a lot more power outages as we roll through the next hour or two here in Louisville. Let me go to our home view. You can see what's moving in. The cluster of storms, the one to our south, that one has the sort of textbook, and we would expect that, right? It's not in that line. It's out on its own. It's feeding off of an environment that relatively has been untapped since earlier today. So with that, we see this storm has the most organization, probably has the greatest ability to survive, which is why it's what we would call a long track supercell. That storm is now firmly into Adair County. And as I zoom in and look at that velocity, we should see the rotation passing by Nail, moving toward Breeding. Again, going just north of Breeding, staying just south of Gradyville. Next in line would be somewhere close to Glens Fork. I'm going to keep an eye on what's happening in Adair County. Let's go over to Brian Good, who's watching Jefferson County and the storms moving in with some pretty powerful winds here.
All right, Kevin, I just sent a note out to our team. We got crews out. We'll be checking with Logan, by the way, in a second. We want to keep the radar up as much as we can. While we're doing that, let's do the split box here if we can, just because we're watching the strong winds moving into southern areas of Corydon, over into western Jefferson County. And I know Kevin's looking at some more data coming in, too. This is heading toward PRP Valley Station, this pocket of wind that's moving into the area. Logan Perone is in the storm tracker now. Logan, where are you at exactly? I know you've been traveling between the Snyder and Shepherdsville back and forth, and now it looks like the strongest of winds about to approach your area, but give us a bearing on where you're at now.
Yes, we're actually in the Meyer parking lot. We're about 265 and 61, so Preston Highway and the Gene Snyder. Just within the last, I'd say, 10 minutes, a lot more lightning. And I was actually outside the car, got right back in because the lightning was so big. You could hear the thunder, I could feel it rumble. And I'm just going to give you a look outside. Again, like you guys have been saying, not necessarily a lot of rain coming down, but a lot of lightning, a lot of thunder. You could feel the wind pick up. Again, we've been all over the southern Louisville metro tonight. We've been down in Bullitt County, Shepherdsville, that area. We have been seeing, again, a lot less rain, more lightning, more thunder as you guys have mentioned this other system starts to move through and we start to see this more in the metro. So we're going to keep it in this area as this comes through. We're going to see what we can see in terms of lightning and wind. And again, if there's any damage, we'll go on and find it. But we'll send it back to you guys right now.
Logan, thank you. Appreciate it. Stay safe and let us know if you experience anything on the intense side, especially as these storms roll in. They're about 10 to 15 minutes away from you, Logan. So we'll be watching it. Again, this is in the southern and southwest side of the metro and southern areas of Harrison County, very close to the casino, heading into PRP Valley Station, all the way down to about Mudrall Hill. That's where some of the stronger pockets of wind, again, radar estimates at times have been exceeding 60 up to 70 miles per hour just off the ground. Whether or not we get some ground truth to that, something we'll be watching carefully. Ryan, you've been on the phone like crazy talking to a lot of folks. What are you hearing out there?
Yeah, so Breckenridge County is in good shape for now. Just off the phone with dispatch and fire down there. They're in decent shape. The problem is we keep getting these damage reports in from parts of wave country a little closer to Louisville. Highway 150 in Palmyra. They've got trees down and injury accidents due to that. We've got power out in Pekin, and a viewer says trees are literally everywhere. So something has happened in Washington County for sure when it comes to wind. Breckenridge County, of course, we said not a whole lot yet. The power outage numbers continue to increase. You'll see about 1% of track customers in Breckenridge County continue to be without power. More phone calls to make, guys, as these storms continue to press through.
All right, lots of damage, lots of power outages, more to come. Our focus to the south has been on this storm moving across the southern part of Adair County. There's Columbia. You can see the storm is staying south. At least the largest rotation is staying south. Not a confirmed tornado, but certainly one that looked as though it may have had debris on the radar and a very tight signature that we look for. So could have happened or briefly touched down. Pretty rural area once you pass Edmonton and move into western Adair County. Nonetheless, nonetheless, we're watching that storm. Not far from there, as I zoom out on the radar view, and I'll put the radar back on instead of the velocity. And as we go back to our home view, I'll point out that is the southernmost part of the viewing area. Coming up I-65 into parts of Hardin County and LaRue County is storm tracker and meteorologist Justin Hilliard. We've been keeping an eye on his viewpoint from the vantage point that he has in the chase vehicle he's been in, chasing from Bowling Green and now lifting to the north, again, not far from the Upton area. Justin is a meteorologist. If you're looking for seeing his feed, you can find that at livestormchasing.com. Just look for his name. But nonetheless, no rain there, but you can see the lightning in the distance. We'll keep up with Justin and see what's happening as we roll through the rest of this evening. Back to the live view on the radar. While we have that storm to the south and Justin's in this dry zone, it's about to get overtaken. So he's intercepting this tornado warning that's coming in out of Breckenridge and Hardin County, likely setting up shop somewhere near E-Town as he continues to lift to the north. This is the next tornado warning. So we have the one to the south. That's in southern Adair County. We also have the one that's moving across parts of Breckenridge County. Let me zoom into that, and we'll track that storm as it makes its way through. Brian's got his eyes on the metro, so we're coming to him next so you can know what to expect here in the city. It's a severe thunderstorm warning for us, but powerful winds. We're looking at the Axtell, Rough River Lake area. The strong winds continue to move through. It's not as defined as what you see back to the south in the Adair County storm, where we have those gate-to-gate winds, or the reds and the greens right next to each other. A little more murky or harder to define in terms of where we would have the strongest rotation. It looks like it would be past the Axtell area now, moving over towards Centerview. This would take it into western Hardin County within the next 15 minutes and continue its eastward movement as it moves through Franklin Crossroads and Eastview, eventually approaching E-Town. We do have cameras in E-Town. We've got our SkyTrack network up, and we are seeing a ton of lightning out of all of these storms. Let me go back to our radar view. That tornado warning remains in place as we continue to track that off to the east, and I can show you as we go back to the home view and zoom in. That warning is in place until 10:15, so another 12 minutes on that. So we've gone through the two tornado warnings that we have. Southern Adair County, a good chunk of southern Breckenridge County, moving into western Hardin County. We're checked up on those. Let's talk about the severe storm moving through Jefferson County with some powerful winds now moving into the western part of the county with Brian Good.
All right, we're monitoring the middle box right below me here. That is a live look at Ollie International. We're looking in the direction of that storm, so we'll know very soon. That camera is very sensitive to very strong winds. If it goes wild, we'll have an idea of what some of those gusts are, especially when it hits the instruments there on the runway itself. This is a look at the wind pocket, and this is on the western side of the metro. Here's Dixie Highway, Valley Station area down to PRP. This is where we're, again, getting radar estimates that exceed severe limits over 60 miles per hour. We just don't have the ground truth yet, but we got to treat it like that wind can easily be pushed down to the ground level. The radar beams in Mount Washington, we've got a different radar on so we can see this wind field a little better as it moves into southern areas, southwest side here of Jefferson County, northwest side of Bullitt County. So big heads up for those of you in Fairdale, Okolona, Highview, down into Shepherdsville. This wall of wind heading right over you toward McNeely Lake and eventually into Fern Creek, heading off to the east at a very fast rate. Ryan Hoke, stand by. You're monitoring some of these wind gusts that continue to escalate too as this pushes through, Ryan.
Yeah, these aren't Doppler radar estimates. These are from weather stations. 36 mile per hour gusts in Cord and 30 miles per hour in Jasper. And we can even drill this down into the metro. Our own weather station in the Wave Weather Garden now reporting a 27 mile per hour gust. That doesn't seem like a lot, but it's pretty low to the ground, so that's pretty significant. There's JVY, that's Clark County Regional Airport there. Jeffersonville just gusting now to 29. So we're starting to see that camera shake a little bit. These wind gust numbers are coming up. Guys, the wind is here. Stay away from doors and windows. Stay inside as this storm passes through the metro.
New tornado warning that just popped up on the top of your screen, Ryan, is on top of ours too. This is going to be Adair County. We'll take it back down there. They're just taking it through the rest of the county, so it's moving past. Let me center that up so you can see it fully. You're going to notice this is for Adair and Russell counties, so that takes you over closer to the Lake Cumberland area, including Russell Springs and Jamestown. This storm is passed by Nell, passed by Breeding, Gradyville, moving just south south of Columbia. Columbia would have been under the threat of large hail and heavy rain. Lots of lightning within that part of the storm as well. But the greatest rotation is now approaching Glens Fork. That will continue as it moves out of the county within the next half hour to push into parts of Cumberland County, and that's where we have 1 1/4 inch hail and obviously the potential to see that tornado. I'm going to show you the rotation on that, on the velocity. We're looking at it gate-to-gate winds, reds and greens side by side. Here it comes into Glen Fork. You should be in your tornado safe place anywhere just south of Columbia. Advised to stay in there until that area of rotation passes, regardless if it's on the ground or not. And we can't tell that based on the radar. What we can say is it's easily could touch down, and we've seen that a time or two through the course of this storm that's been on the radar for hours now. When we go back,
Kevin, I just want to mention real quick, I just watched transformers blowing at Ollie International.
Oh, no kidding.
So just FYI, that strong pocket of wind moving in. So we'll be watching that carefully. We don't know yet what the speed's on. Just want to at least mention that we're monitoring that. If anyone hears those loud booms in the distance there. Pretty common in strong winds, but when you get more than one kind of image like that, it catches your attention.
Yeah, no question. And talk about the wind speed and where those are. Let's go back to the pockets of wind for Jefferson County.
That's right there, right across, I would say, Fairdale, Auburndale area, all the way into right around Valley Station and Fairdale itself. The Snyder Freeway. This is right over the Jefferson Memorial Forest. And Ryan, you were just telling me about the wind. Was it in Jeffersonville or the Weather Garden at 30?
Yeah, Weather Garden right now is at
27.
Is at 34 miles per hour. And that's just updated.
That's a sealed
That's only
area,
like 30 feet off the ground with all these buildings around. So that's significant, even here in downtown.
Let's show you the look of the SkyTrack camera again. This is on the northern side of that pocket of wind. Then we'll get back to Kevin as we're still watching that tornado warning there carefully into Dare County. But let's show you the SkyTrack, and this will show you a live look to that giant UPS hanger there on the right-hand side. And this is where, again, I just looked over and saw the transformers blowing in the distance on the bottom right where our little icon is there. Is where they were blowing. So we'll be watching as it moves in. It's just now approaching the airport. We're right on the northern
You can see the camera. I mean,
yeah, really starting to ramp up there. As soon as it hits the sensor, I'll let you know, Kevin, with the gust star, as that should be getting that number out here very, very soon.
Well, that's the good part about where this is hitting is we do have measurements there at the airport, so we'll get the 5-minute or immediate observation as that moves into Jefferson County.
Corydon 55 miles per hour, just updated personal weather station.
So Corydon, Indiana, sitting just back to the west, 55. So we would suspect that we're at least at that, probably a little higher. All right, to the radar view, we're going to track this line of storms. We'll start with the metro, work our way down. We'll check back in with Brian so we can see more of the detail on that wind. We go into the metro, some of this rain spreading up into Oldham County at this point from LaGrange, eastern Jefferson County with rain. Many of us under that severe thunderstorm warning. Again, it is in place for wind, not tornadoes, but wind. But those winds could exceed in areas, especially along that 65 corridor right now, upwards of 60 to 70 mile per hour winds pushing through. That would certainly cause power outages and transformers to blow. We go to the latest severe thunderstorm warning that we have. It's downstream from the tornado warning that we've been tracking, moving across parts of Breckenridge, northern Grayson, and Hardin County. This, again, fits what we're going to transition to now as time wears on. Instead of the individual tornado warnings that were more likely earlier, this will become a more linear line of storms, and that's typical. And there will be likely wind damage along many points within that line. So instead of there being one solid tornado warning, you get the 70 mile per hour considerable damage potential from this line of storms. And that's why this polygon is shaped the way it is, so you can see what they're looking at. It's that band of
storms. A strong pocket in downtown, right along the Ohio River. In fact, I'm turning the SkyTrack over there.
Let's go back over to you. I see it moving from Jeffersonville to Mockingbird Valley.
That's going up. That's likely would hit the Weather Garden moments ago. Ryan was talking about, and likely came through the Corydon area. It's now right there on 71, heading toward areas right along the Ohio River and Mockingbird Valley and your Ballard High School there, Ryan.
I'm just getting this from National Weather Service chat. 71 knot gust at SDF just now. That would convert to 81 miles
82
per hour.
miles an hour. Look at it there.
That's
Holy
one
cow.
of the top winds we were at. Yeah.
That is impressive with just a severe thunderstorm warning. So we're at 82 mile per hour winds hitting at the airport, and that was just within the last minute or two. So that's why the Weather Garden has seen, and those were sustained to 49, gusting to 82. Super impressive. Let's, in fact, keep us up in the box. Brian's radar, he's got the sort of threshold turned down on that, so we can see that just a little bit better behind you, Brian. Let's walk through that. I want to stay on Brian and that radar Max 2 so we can track the pocket of that wind. So
this was about the time
let's put up Max 2.
This is about the time it looks like it hit about 10:07. That would be about right for the airport. Let me get the camera back up. Hopefully they got still the image. It may take me a second, but that's when we had that pocket in southern Jefferson County. The image looks a little different because I had to switch different radar views, but you see that pocket.
Let's take Max 2 full, and then we can watch it.
I appreciate it. Right there over, here's the airport area. This is where that strong pocket of wind. I got a feeling we're going to end up with higher reports of wind right in downtown Louisville with that gust. Let me show you where it is
Mettinger
now.
Tower, 82 miles per hour, about 360 feet off the ground.
That makes sense. I'm right through there. That's now moving right into southern side here, Clark County.
Near Northfield.
Yeah, right over Northfield area, along the Ohio River, heading toward Transylvania Beach here before long. It keeps going, eventually into Prospect. So heads up, if you are in western Oldham County, northeast Jefferson County, not far from the northern Brownsboro Hospital area, Brownsboro Road, all the way into about Utica. Wind gusts over 70 miles per hour, already been measured over 80 miles per hour in Louisville. And I am trying to go from memory. I don't know if that's the highest we've ever been, but I think it's up there.
Yeah,
I don't.
Top 10.
I can't think of anything that we had 78 and 79 a couple times in 2022. But I can't recall an 82 mile per hour wind gust. So that is amazing to see that kind of a wind gust.
New tornado warning coming out for Breckenridge, Grayson, Hardin, Hart, and LaRue. Strongest winds in the metro now are over Utica, Glenview, back down to Northfield and Barber Mead. Estimated winds on radar coming in over 80 miles an hour with that. So again, that's in the metro. We go back to the tornado warning that's being expanded off to our south, and you can see that includes what I mentioned with Grayson, Hardin, Hart, and LaRue, Litchfield, Millerstown, Short Creek, all in that until 10:45. That storm is the one we've been watching. Not confirmed, it's radar indicated, but that is the one just off to the south. So we've got 2 tornado warnings there, the one moving out of Adair County, and very powerful winds that have been measured, so this isn't a guess, at 82 miles per hour. Where is the storm tracker, and are we anywhere where there's damage? At 82 miles an hour?
They said the power outage everywhere.
I was going to say at 82 miles an hour, we have to have massive damage across the city. So I'm sure power outages are stacking up by the second as this core of wind moves through Jefferson County. Let me go back to the view and let me zoom in. So let's just zoom in. And our newsroom will be making calls as well, figuring out how many power outages we actually have. But the core of the wind displaced from where you would think the strongest winds may be. The lighter rain producing some of the most intense wind in Jefferson County. Moving in northeast Jefferson County, Glenview Hills, Prospect, across the river near Utica. That is, you need to be in your tornado safe place. 82 mile an hour winds have been measured in 2 different places, at the airport, at the tower downtown, lifting to the north and east. This is a big deal. Now we continue to track this to the south where we get into the heavier rain and the lightning. Again, still powerful winds with this, just not as strong as what we've seen where we were looking at the lighter rain and where we actually measured the wind. We get down across northern Bullitt County. We have heavy rain and a lot of lightning. All of these storms contain massive lightning. The severe thunderstorm thunderstorm warning continues there. We're just trailing this down. We get into northern parts of Hardin County. Get your bearings. There's Radcliffe, Longview, Rineyville. Strong storms moving through. Powerful wind. Very little in the way of hail. So we're seeing the hail threat diminish a bit. It never was extremely high. We continue to track this down, and we're going to get into the tornado warnings. And you can see the first one of two moving past the Clarkson area. This is over toward Litchfield. It's this line of storms that has the ability to rotate as that moves through Litchfield over toward West Clifty, Fragrant, over to Millerstown. That is one tornado warning that we have. The other one a little bit farther to the south as we work our way. Let me just show you where it goes as we move it east. That would be Broadford over toward Priceville and Bonnieville. So we're now down into Hart County. LaRue County is where you find Upton, Sonora, lifting up into Hardin County. So you're under the tornado warning. Farther south we go, we have the storm that's been moving out of southern parts of Adair County. There's Allendale, Summersville. You work your way farther to the south, and eventually you get out of the storms altogether. As we look up toward Magnolia and we push back, and we're zoomed in pretty tight here, I'm going to get over toward the Campbellsville area, and then we'll go just south of there. There's Campbellsville. This is the Green River Lake. We had the other tornado warning that continues across southern parts of Adair County, and that's just about to move out. But notice the hook on that. Let me show you what that rotation looks like. I'm rolling through this because we have the potential, again, right on that county line, to see powerful winds. But boy, we have 80+ mile-per-hour winds in the metro. Let's go to Brian Good, who's been tracking the latest pocket of heavy wind here.
Yeah, I'm just checking on my family right now, and there's no power at my home at the moment. So I'm sure it's a common theme everyone's witnessing. In fact, some of the strongest wind right now is moving right there into Mount Washington. So we're watching that area as well as Oldham County. But I got to stress, this is likely a 70+ mile-per-hour wind gust moving right into Highway 44 near Bullitt East High School, heading eventually toward Plum Creek Road area as you move into western side of Spencer County and the northwest side of Taylorsville. Meanwhile, the other pocket of very strong wind moving into officially an area that doesn't have a warning right now, but that's going to be moving into Goshen, into areas of Oldham County. We're monitoring that as well. But again, this has already been confirmed reports of 80+ mile-per-hour winds with this line of storms. And that pocket right now that's right over Fern Creek in Mount Washington is the most concerning that we got. And Ryan, I think one of the telltale signs was that wind gust that hit 34 miles per hour in the weather garden. That something was array with this particular band.
Yeah, and that's blocked by all sorts of buildings, guys. I do want to go through the significance of this. 82 mile-per-hour gust here in Louisville. That's as of 10:08. So that was 10 minutes ago, gusting to 49 miles per hour here in the weather garden. That's a big deal because that's a very shielded anemometer, 55 miles per hour in Cordon. This will now be the third fastest wind speed recorded at the Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport since record keeping began in 1970. So that'll be just below 1971. And look at that, April 3rd, 1974, an 84 mile per hour gust. Guys, we have about 13,000 people without power in the metro, but that number continues to skyrocket. You see this map right here? It's going to get a lot more colorful in the next 10 minutes, Kevin.
All right, appreciate that. Again, power outages increasing by the moment. You can see the lightning. We have the storm tracker out. We also have a number of trees that are being reported down along I-264. That's the Watterson eastbound, not far from mile marker 8. So that's going to be a zone that we have to look at. When we check the radar view, you'll notice we have severe thunderstorm warnings moving through the metro. The tornado warning for Grayson, Hart, Hardin, and LaRue, and the one moving out of Adair County. So as the one moves out of Adair County, that's out of our viewing area. New severe thunderstorm warnings are coming out for parts of southern Indiana and now including Oldham County. You're going to notice that this has been observed because of the measurements that have taken place. And there you see radar indicated. That's for the Franklin and Jefferson storm. Let me pan this down and you'll see the latest warning as we look to Oldham County. If I can get that one to light up. Get out of the Louisville one. There it is. Again, that one considerable with 70-mile-per-hour winds possible as we move that storm across parts of Oldham County. Again, these storms have the ability to produce damage because of the forward motion and the winds that's sort of associated with them. We've been pointing out pockets of wind, and that will continue. When we look at the tornado warnings that we have, those have been a little more diffused across parts of Breckenridge and Grayson counties, now moving through western Hardin County. So I'm going to zoom into those down to our south, and as we take a look a little closer at all of these storms passing by, we're still focused very much on the very powerful winds. I mean, what could go down, not only as a top wind speed for Louisville, but may have caused the most damage, was with light rain falling. Not the tornadoes, not the large hail, not anything other than massive wind. And that's what we saw kicking in at the airport. It's now down to a gust of 62 miles an hour, but it was up to 82 just a bit ago. So let's zoom in a little bit farther to the south. We'll keep Louisville in the frame. The tornado warning passed Litchfield, and I'm going to put the velocity on this just to see if we have any sharp rotation. But at this point, there is a pocket of heavier wind, and let me zoom into that just a little bit more. Sometimes we have to zoom in so close just to see these little pockets of wind, but boy, if you don't, you miss it, and that is a pocket of wind passing by Litchfield near Peonia. That's going to move over toward Fragrant, and again, a wall of strong wind moving into West Clifty along 62, but this is a burst of wind that sits just to the south and east of the Litchfield area. That is, again, in the tornado warning down across parts of Grayson County, moving eventually into Hardin County. When we take the view, and I'm just going to pan this over to show that that tornado warning continues and will expand all the way up to Sonora and Upton. As we go back to the home view, while we have our eyes on the wind going on across parts of Grayson and Breckenridge County, we also have our eyes on what's happening off to the north. New severe thunderstorm warnings are coming out along this line of storms that are passing through. The latest one, again, for parts of Edmondson, Hart, and LaRue, and even Warren County down toward Bowling Green. This Boeing segment that is pushed out, we've talked about, that has the ability to produce considerable damage in the fact that that's a forward push of wind. Anywhere along this Boeing segment, there will be wind. You get down to the Tennessee border near Hopkinsville, new tornado warning that's just come out for that. That's outside of our viewing area. Let's go over to Brian.
All right, Kevin, I wanted to look up the winds here. There's the top wind gust we've had on record here into Louisville. The highest is actually 84 miles per hour that we had recorded back in 1971. Number 2 and number 3 there are going to take the spots. Happened again in 1974, of course, during the severe weather and tornadoes that we had in the super outbreak of 74. So this 82 miles per hour would be our third highest ever recorded, and the highest we've had since 2023, when we had the back-to-back wind events in March and April of that year. This is a very significant and a rare event that we've had happen here in the past 30 minutes, Kevin.
Not only did it beat it, but it beat it by several miles per hour.
Yeah, exactly. So it's, you know, we thought that was a bad event in 2023, especially having back-to-back. But again, to have it rival, I mean, it's the strongest winds technically we've had since 1974 and the April 3rd tornado outbreak.
Wow. The winds in Jefferson County are easing as that storm pushes over into Oldham County. We're tracking that. Again, a number of power outages are just now starting to build and come in. The latest warnings that we have across the area are mainly due to wind, but we do have the tornado warning off to our south across parts of Grayson County, moving now into the western and southern parts of Hardin County. So that's one area. When we look at the whole picture, we've got storms from Columbus to Cincinnati through Louisville, down near Bowling Green, Paducah, and into northern Arkansas. If you're behind that line, things are calming down slowly. There may be a few storms that try to pop, but the real show is now moving through. And even though it may be a couple of hours behind time of when we thought it would be here, a lot of that was related to how late those morning clouds stuck around this morning, and it just delayed the onset. But now that we've destabilized and brought in the front, you can clearly see what is unfolding across the viewing area, and that is a massive wall of wind with pockets of even heavier wind or higher winds that are doing damage. When you talk about winds over 80 miles an hour with just a general thunderstorm, That's impressive and not very common at all. So we've seen that in Louisville. We measured it at 2 different locations, and now we're tracking the storms to our south. Does this mean everybody's getting winds like that? Absolutely not. These are small pockets of very strong wind with a broader area that still has probably 50 to 60 mile per hour winds, and that can still do damage. Let us walk through the radar with you so you can understand what's happening across the Louisville area. And I'm going to zoom in, and again, looks like light rain falling across Oldham County, but some of our strongest winds are likely occurring there down into northern Shelby County. We see the strongest rain or heaviest rain falling in southeast Jefferson County, not far from Fern Creek. The wind is still strong, but nowhere where it was. Our gusts now are at 58 miles per hour, likely a little higher toward Fern Creek, moving into Spencer County near Taylorsville. We get down to Cox's Creek and Bardstown. SkyTrack cameras there bouncing around a bit, showing increasing wind speeds as these storms move into Nelson County. We note that all of that area is under a severe thunderstorm warning. We go over to E-Town, moving into Elizabethtown with heavy rain. Severe thunderstorm warning in place just south of you near Sonora. We've been keeping an eye on that storm through the eyes of Justin Hilliard, a meteorologist and storm chaser that we have the ability to see the feed for coming out of there. There's not a lot there now, but what's moving in is just now crossing out of Grayson County, pushing into western Hardin County near Harcourt over toward Millerstown. That's going to continue to move over toward 31W and I-65. That will be another push of wind that moves through with that potential for damage as that makes its trek at about 50 to 60 miles per hour. So we continue to see that passing by. To our south a little bit further, we see additional strong winds moving across Brownsville. Not far. This is, again, just moving outside of our viewing area, just south of Grayson County and moving into parts of Hart County. So wind is now the big deal that we have to keep an eye on, and it really is about finding those individual pockets of wind that we have across the area. There's one of those moving across parts of Spencer and Shelby counties right now. Let's take a look with Brian Good.
All right, Kevin, this is going to be near Normandy and not too far away from Yoder and northwest of Little Mount as you get into areas just past 155 there, Taylorsville Lake Road area, as you get into the far northeast side of Spencer County. Radar estimates right now are over 70 miles per hour. This particular pocket of wind heading on the southern side here of Shelby County. Now, you have a severe thunderstorm warning that's out already for this. It's got a tag already listed for potential of 70 mile per hour winds. Radar is still estimating that potential. It's going to be heading right into Olive Branch. See a little bit of a hook, not a hook, excuse me, a bowing segment right through here, just north of, say, Taylorsville and Taylorsville Lake. That little bowing segment, that's what you're really going to watch. Let me get right into the street level on this one. Again, this is going to be very close to the Normandy area. Some of the streets, let me take off my cursor so you can see it. Looks like Jefferson or Jeffers Lane, getting into Meadow Lake Drive area. Also, as you get off to the east, John Henry Road, Yoder Tipton, Buck Henry, Forester Lane, Travis Road, and there's another strong pocket right there. I can't read the name.
Normandy Road.
Normandy Road. Then also on the southern side of that, you get near Bashir's Creek. Our friend that watches all the time, Angela, if you're watching, I hope you're all right. She's in the path of that as well. So we'll be watching as it heads toward Highway 44 and Old LaGrange Road area as you track into the southern parts there of, say, Finchville into Shelby County. It's going to hit a couple of gauges here, Kevin, very soon, if it's not already, and we should get some real-time data on that as it moves by.
I want you to zoom up to Oldham County. Let's go back to that view with Brian, and we'll just have a conversation here. Matt just sent me a message saying we just had 73 mile per hour winds in LaGrange at 10:26. That's about 3 minutes ago. So if you're looking at LaGrange, you can see the pockets of that wind moving through there as well.
What time was that again?
About 10:26, somewhere right through there. 25, 26, something like that.
Yeah, it has a little bit of rain fade in that, so it's hard to see it. But it
could have been brought down by the rain.
Yeah,
in fact,
right at that point. Yeah, right along 71. That is heading quickly, by the way, all the way into Carrollton.
So if we looked at that, we would say even over toward Newcastle at this time at 10:29. line where you have those dead spots in the radar. That could be rain bringing down those very strong winds.
We do have measured in LaGrange on the Mesonet at 46 miles per hour.
Okay. So, yeah, and I guess it depends where you are exactly, obviously. But a lot of these pockets of wind with 50, 60, 70, and in some rare cases like it was here in Louisville, 80-mile-per-hour winds. The bulk of the wind is past Louisville, but now it's to our east, parts of eastern Spencer County, north of Taylorsville, moving now east of Normandy, and then pushing into southern parts of Shelby County. And that would be places like Figs and Southville next in line. So impressive. While we're keeping this up, let's go to Ryan Hope.
Yeah, we've got our first photo of some damage here in Louisville. This is a tree branch that's down in someone's driveway here, Jonathan's driveway in Okolona. You'll see that here. If you've got photos or videos of your damage, you can post them to the Wave Weather Facebook page. Just find the post I have up there. It's purple. It's got a bunch of text saying, hey, do you have, it's the 82-mile-per-hour gust in Louisville. Do you have photos? Post them here. Post them there, and I'll be able to put them on TV here in our live stream. Look at these wind damage reports from MPing, which is an app you can download for your phone from the University of Oklahoma, the National Weather Service. Those purple icons, that is the highest level of wind damage you can have, and you'll see that out near areas closer to like, oh gosh, what is that, Shively, and then once again, a little closer to near Fern Creek and Glenmary, just west of there, near Turkey Run Park. As we zoom out, you'll see the wind damage reports here. We, of course, had the 82-mile-per-hour gust here in Louisville, 55 miles per hour, up toward Henryville, Indiana, a little bit earlier, measured by a personal weather station. 21,500 customers at last check here in Louisville are without power. There is also a significant power outage in Washington County, Indiana. Nearly 15% of Washington County, this includes like Salem, Gibson, Campbellsville, Livonia, Hardinsburg, Indiana. All of you folks up there, 3,532 of you are without power right now of the 23,000. We can query the Louisville, Jefferson County area as well. It's a little bit behind, has about half the number of actual. This will catch up here in about 20 minutes or so. But nonetheless, you see this lighting up as we promised it would. You would have the third highest wind gust here in Louisville's history, and expect to see a lot of damage and power outages. And guys, these reports are going to trickle in. It's going to be hard, though, because it's the dark of night, hard to see. But please, if you're posting those photos on our Facebook page, do so safely, Kevin.
Yeah, for sure. We're getting some reports out of the Shively area that you just mentioned that not only do we have damage, but there may possibly be some rescues going on. We're working to firm that up and make some confirmation, but that area could have very well been hit hard. We've seen that. When we look at what's happening again, I'm not ignoring any of the warnings that we have going on. There are a number of severe thunderstorm warnings. I think if you're under one of those warnings, you just have to assume that wind damage is possible. But the fact is, we have the tornado warning, but we're having a lot more problems outside of that tornado warning. Typically, you'd watch the coverage and we'd be focused in on the tornado warning and probably that only because there would be rotation and the potential for it to touch down. But the fact in this matter is this is a massive wind maker, and we've seen 82-mile-an-hour winds outside of even a thunderstorm where it was just light rain passing through, and then the thunderstorms came in behind it. So we're not ignoring any of the warnings for folks that feel like, well, you're not paying attention to where I'm at. Bottom line is, if you're watching across Kentucky and you're not in Breckinridge County, then you need to be prepared for massive wind, 60, 70, possibly 80-mile-per-hour winds in some locations. It's not going to hit everywhere, but it will hit in a few locations as these storms move through. At this point, the core of this happens to be right in this pocket here. Northern parts of Spencer County, southern parts of Shelby County. Brian Good has his eyes on a very rural area that's probably getting blasted with 70 to 80-mile-an-hour winds.
Yeah, let me check and see what the latest radar estimates are. This is near Southville. In fact, Southville's up next. Hold on, let me get the warning off so you can see that. Again, right on the border there of Spencer and Shelby County. Estimates still over 60 miles per hour in that pocket. We're tracking that again, just southwest of Southville. Again, very close to 68 to 70 miles per hour. Now, some of this is just off the ground, but still very close to the reality that we've seen so far with this pocket of wind that's an arc that has been stretching right across now Carroll County all the way through Henry County, right into Shelby County, Spencer County, and northeast Nelson County. But it's that little pocket right there that has my attention at the moment. That is tracking there very close to I-64. In fact, this is going to be crossing I-64 within the next 5 minutes. It'll be heading right into Grafenberg, right near Waddy, Kentucky, where we've already had at least small hail reports, I believe, out of Waddy not long ago from this line of storm. So now you got the wind that's heading your way. And if this keeps holding together, and it has been for a while, the capital is up next. So we will likely continue with this strong pocket. There's not much, based on the radar signature, there's not much, Kevin, that would weaken this portion of that wind belt. So it is likely to keep going all the way into Franklin.
And it's on that forward edge. So Southville, Mount Eden, these are places that, again, seeing that powerful wind as it pushes through. That extends out in both directions, but that certainly is the core of it, right along the Spencer-Shelby County line, south of Shelbyville and off to the east of Taylorsville. So Mount Eden really seeing the heaviest of that wind at this point. While I have this wind product on, I'm just going to zoom about. You can see stronger winds pushing even into far eastern Spencer County, from Mount Eden down to Van Buren. Bloomfield seeing some pockets of wind move through. And then we'll make our way back to the south as we work our way through Bardstown. Looking back to the north, you can see moving into parts of western Nelson County, over into northern Hardin County. There's Radcliffe. Again, some wind showing up there. Down toward Rineyville, moving even into Elizabethtown. Some wind moving in. I'm going to go back to the home view here as we take a closer view of what is on regionally, and I've put on the radar from Mount Washington. This is the terminal Doppler radar. Can be a little more sensitive, especially in the metro area as we track these storms. I'll take that off for a second. Just go back to our normal radar view, and you can see the warnings that we have. All severe thunderstorm with the tornado warning moving across parts of Hardin County at this point. Let me check that. I was just looking at that while Brian was talking. There is very little sign to pick out the rotation on that. That squiggle in there is likely the reason why that has the tornado warning. We have a new severe thunderstorm warning that's just lying outside of the area. That's going to come out for Casey and Russell counties in Kentucky. Nonetheless, the warnings will continue as long as this wind field stays strong, and even in some cases intensifying as the low-level jet stream increases. When we check the velocity on the tornado warned storm, it's still just that push of wind. Now moving past Sonora, we pointed out that we've had storm trackers and storm chasers on these storms. I want to show you what that looks like. Justin Hilliard is a meteorologist from Louisville, and he's been chasing these storms all the way from West Kentucky through Bowling Green and now back up into central Kentucky. So as these storms make their way back to into our viewing area, you can see not too far from the Upton area, moving closer to Elizabethtown, and that is again where we have Justin's live video coming from.
Lightning is. I was real close to Smyrna, it looks like.
I was getting ready to say, I think he's in southern Jefferson County at this point, refreshing the map here so I can see it. There. But the lightning, you're right, is impressive. So he's coming up to Minor Lane Heights as we bring that into Jefferson County. So I just wanted to point that out. So we are watching. He was passing through this area at this point, the heaviest wind, now approaching Hodgenville, Roanoke, as you work your way into northern LaRue County. Let's go over to Ryan Hope.
Okay, we've got some new imagery of the damage here in Louisville. In fact, some pretty impressive video. This is from Cooper Chapel Road, southern Jefferson County near Preston Highway. Pay attention to the right side of this video. You will see a tree come down just in a second, and here it comes. Boom, tree comes down right in Andy's backyard. She unfortunately stopped recording right when it hit the ground, but you can see that that has been a tremendous amount of damage there. And look at this. This is from Courtney Smith in PRP. Wow, that is a large tree all the way down, pretty much snapped at its base there. These power outages continue to stack up as well here in Louisville. Over 20,000 without power. Significant power outage in Washington County, Indiana as well, guys. Keep sending in your photos and videos. Wave Weather Facebook page. It's the purple post that says 82 mile per hour wind gust in Louisville. Comment on that with your photos and videos. They'll appear here, Kevin.
All right, we've got a tree on a house over off in the Taylor Berry neighborhood. That's off of Wordle. We've got crews going there. Sounds like a rescue may be going on. We'll bring you that coming up in just a few minutes. We are tracking these storms through the area. They've had a history of producing massive wind, the highest wind we've seen in Louisville in a long, long time, with just the thunderstorm winds at 82 miles an hour. That was measured at the airport. We also measured 80-plus mile-an-hour winds atop one one of the buildings downtown here in Louisville. So those winds are blasting through. They've weakened in places, but we still are tracking a pocket of heavy wind that's been along the border of Spencer County and the southeastern part of Shelby County. That continues to move off and taking aim into Franklin County. More on that in just a second. We go all the way down into the central part of Kentucky from Bardstown to E-Town, past Litchfield, but moving toward Hart County and Munfordville. Still strong winds associated with this. The hail threats become less, but we do have pockets of strong wind in all of this area. The strongest pocket we're watching happens to be moving in Shelby County, and Brian has had his eyes zoomed in as far as we can on these radar views just to show exactly where those wind gusts are the strongest. And again, 60, 70, and in some rare cases, perhaps near 80 miles per hour. And Brian, we're looking near the Harrisonville area.
Yeah, we're running to an area where the terrain gets a little more hilly, of course, so the winds may vary a bit on speed, but we know that it can produce 82 miles per hour in a very wide open area like Ollie International, even in the middle of downtown Louisville, where we had wind gusts over 80 miles per hour. This could certainly do the same thing. Right now, it is located right over Harrisonville, eastern side of Shelby County again, heading right into Franklin County. Can't stress enough, we've been talking about Franklin and Frankfort for a while here, that you need to get ready for a strong surge of wind heading your way, that it will easily exceed severe thresholds of 58 miles per hour and can go as high as 80 in a couple of cases. But especially with this particular pocket, we're watching it carefully. Still some strong winds on the northern side of that, so we're not discounting. There is still a surge of wind from Henry County all the way into Carroll County, but it's just about out of the area because it's moving a lot faster on that portion of it towards Cincinnati than it is on the southern flank of that. It really stands out when you look at it in a wider view. You see the other warnings that are out now in central areas of Kentucky. By the way, for those of you in Indiana, the front itself hasn't quite cleared Indiana yet, but your odds of seeing things develop are right now fairly slim. They would have to connect the storms out of Dayton, Ohio for them to pop, and so far that has not been the trend, but you've already had wind damage. Even without a ton of thunderstorms in southern Indiana, you have one of the first signs that we were getting wind damage reports there in Indiana itself. So been a very odd scenario, Kevin. We've had these massive supercells that have been alarming on radar, but it's been the severe thunderstorms and the downburst winds and straight line winds have caused the biggest issues here tonight.
Well, you and I have been doing this a long time, and I mean, when you collectively take all of the storms that the three of us in the studio have tracked, and you think about that 82-mile-an-hour wind and what it came from, it's just mind-blowing. It really was something because there was, what, light rain on the radar at the time with some lightning nearby?
Well, not to say my age, but it's the strongest since I've been alive. That we've seen that kind of wind here in Louisville, so it's been a long time.
Yeah, I mean, 82-mile-an-hour wind, that causes massive damage.
Oh, yeah.
In fact, I think we'll see more and more as the night wears on and the daylight tomorrow comes around. But you can't get 82-mile-an-hour winds, and we think back to Ike and the damage that left behind. While that was across a much larger area, wind speeds were that impressive. So this was much more isolated, but in those isolated areas that it hit, I can guarantee you there is damage at 82 miles an hour. Right now, it's southern parts of Shelby County that we're watching. That's going to be moving over towards southern Franklin County. That's where we have the pocket of wind moving
There's
through.
Another pocket in Simpsonville. I'm going to put up the SkyTrack camera. Just now popped in over the outlet. So I just wanted to let you know, Kevin. I'll punch it in while you're talking.
And then here we are, Shelbyville. So Simpsonville's not too far away. I'll square that up. We're going to be right in this area here, just south of Simpsonville, just south of Interstate 64. So with this little pocket of rain on the back edge of that, that's another gust of wind that's coming out. So not too far from Fig or Olive Branch that also sits near the southern part of the border into Spencer County. So one pocket south of Simpsonville and another one working its way over toward the Harrisonville area as that one lifts into southern Franklin County. So those are two areas that we're watching for some intense wind. Back to the home view we go, just to note the severe thunderstorm warnings. This tornado warning is just about to expire. We've had no reports of tornadoes in the viewing area. We've had a number of tornado warnings just north of the viewing area as we track those very close to the border of both Lawrence, Jackson, and Jennings County. We did have tornadoes on the ground there. We certainly had strong signatures to our south, out of Bowling Green, moving over toward Columbia. That tornado warning continues, but it's outside of the area, moving into parts of Russell County. That, again, no confirmation of an actual touchdown. What we have confirmed is that we've seen a number of wind reports out of this line of storms that have produced damage. And that's what we're seeing even here in Louisville, Shively, one of those harder hit places. Let's go to Ryan Hoke with some damage.
Yeah, and we've got new damage photos coming in from you, our viewers at home here. Thomas Church, I'm so sorry about what has happened to your house. He had a tree fall on his house. This is the Mount Washington Road area there. You can see all the branches covering up the house. If you look at the roof line, you can see where the gutter is bent. Yikes, sounds like an insurance claim to me. You'll notice as we head down toward Albany Avenue, this is in the Crescent Hill neighborhood, a little bit different of an area here in Louisville than we have been talking about. That's just a mess there. Look at that backyard. It looks like tree debris all over the place. That heavy wind gust, of course, affecting areas a little closer to the Highlands and Crescent Hill. The power outage numbers are now updated for the Louisville metro area. That's 21,572 LG&E customers without power in Louisville. That's a 5.3% power outage here in the city. That's pretty significant. Bullitt County has a 22% power outage. That's 8,600 customers. And you'll notice we track about 39,000 customers down there. Spencer County, we don't want to forget about you guys. About 13% of you are without power right now. That's about 938 customers. And finally, let's get to Oldham County, shall we? That's about 190 customers without power down that way. So these colors are lighting up. The sort of hotter the colors are, the more orange, the more red they are, the higher percentage of a county has a power outage. Here in Louisville, thankfully, we're staying under that 10% threshold right now, but still 21,000 folks without power here in the metro area. That's pretty significant. LG&E has their work cut out for them. Please stay away from downed power lines. And of course, call LG&E if you happen to see that, Kevin.
All right, appreciate that, Ryan. We've got two pockets of wind we're watching. I've got my eyes on southern Nelson County. Happens to be near New Haven, which is where I'm from. That is going to be a pretty good burst of wind moving through. So prepare for 60, 70 mile per hour winds with that. That is right around the New Haven area. And we're looking at radar measuring that of over 70 miles per hour, upwards of 75 miles per hour. So that's working your way anywhere from Howardstown up through New Haven, perhaps just a little bit farther north as you work your way not far from, say, Balltown. So moving up to the north. I've been watching that. Brian has his eyes up closer to Shelby County. Brian?
Yeah, this is heading right into an area. I just noticed on the traffic sensors, even traffic, as you might suspect, come into a crawl basically between Waddy, Kentucky, and as you head all the way into Frankfort. Of course, it's a very big drop off as you get toward the Kentucky River area. But you could see that very strong pocket of wind. Bridgeport, right over Alton, Kentucky. Again, it's crossing right into the southern side there of the south section of Frankfort itself in Franklin County and northern Anderson County into Kentucky. Now, there is a warning that is in place. You see they're adjusting it still. Obviously, based on this pocket of wind, I don't see how they're going to be able to avoid another warning section, at least a bit more of an expansion for the rest of Anderson County all the way into the rest of Franklin. But it's right on the edge of our viewing area, but boy, it's rapidly moving to the north and east. But anytime you take that forward motion like that, that tells you that the ability to get strong gusts to the ground level goes way high, and that's been the biggest threat we've had in the area today, Kevin.
All right, I want to go out to Wordle Avenue. That's over in the area of Shively. We have kids that have been trapped in what appears to be a home there that has collapsed. So we'll go there. I want to show you what that view looks like. You can see firefighters on the scene. You can see what appears to be at least a tree that's either completely on top of a structure or at least into it. So they are still working. You can see by the dark of night there is no power with those strong winds that we measured at 82 miles an hour from the Louisville International Muhammad Ali Airport. Stands to serve that they likely were hit with those same winds before they even reached the airport of over 75 to 85 miles per hour. Moving through, that wind would destroy, it could destroy a lot of things, but it certainly can push trees and uproot trees into what we're looking at. Obviously, we've got police, fire, and EMS on that scene where we're being told off of Wordle Avenue in Shively that kids are being rescued from the home as we take a look. So I see Louisville Fire and Rescue there, and a number of other agencies that have reached out to assist, probably in more than one location, I have a feeling. I mean, this is the one where kids are being rescued, but the wind was not just in one little spot, so we likely have a number of trees that are down. I know Logan Perrone has been in the storm tracker. He's making his way near this same area. I want to bring him into our coverage just to see if he has any additional information on power outages or where he may be. You can see the vast response from the Louisville Fire and EMS moving at a swift pace to make sure that they provide the services that they always do, especially when it comes to taking care of kids that are trapped and rescued. Logan, can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, Kevin. We're down in Valley Station. This is the Valley Downs subdivision. We've seen a lot of limbs down, a lot of power out at a number of different homes. It's really hit or miss in this area. We saw at one point across the street a house we saw flashlights, people inside. They don't have any power. Right across the street, all the lights on, floodlights, inside lights, you name it. We're off of Count Fleet Drive here. This is Omar Khayyam Boulevard, and you can see this giant tree behind me just blocking the way. We've had a few cars try to come through asking us if we knew what's the best way to get around this. Well, hate to tell them we don't know just exactly, but yeah, this is just what we've seen throughout the Valley Downs area. No rain right now, not a lot of lightning. The thunder have gone away, but again, what's left from those storms coming through, Kevin, this is what folks are coming out to.
All right, appreciate that, Logan. We also are keeping up with obviously what's happening off of Wordle Avenue. We'll keep that up. Logan, we appreciate you reporting on trees down. We know that that's causing a lot of traffic problems and, of course, a lot of structural problems across the area. We can't ignore the fact that we still have pockets of strong wind moving through. Let me zoom into Nelson County, and then I'll ask Brian to take care of the areas to our north. As we look at this pocket of wind.
That is a very strong pocket.
Yeah, this one is moving into the Raywick area. So this is the one we've been focused on. And this is, again, probably 70-mile-per-hour winds moving through Dant. That's right into Marion County. So you come out of New Haven, you come right into Marion County. This is going to push very close to the Loretto area, just north of Raywick. It's moving through Dant right now, just south of Holy Cross on 527. This is US 52 that goes from New Haven. That takes you right into Loretto and St. Francis. So this is an area where we are experiencing very strong winds. And notice that little Boeing segment. That is a very powerful push. Damage likely occurring with this. Measuring winds with that. What do you have, Brian?
Anywhere from 65 at one point up to 82 miles per hour.
Yeah, and if those are reaching the ground, which has been realized a couple of times already today, that is going to do some damage as well as that pushes into the Loretto area as that storm tracks off to the east. These storms are moving at a pretty good clip, but that is the strongest pocket of wind that we have approaching Loretto down in Marion County. There's Burke Springs. That's going to take you 49 coming in from Bardstown and then 52 coming in from New Haven. That pocket of wind is now right over Loretto. Next in line would be Burke Spring. While I'm zoomed into the very heart of the core of the wind, it does expand out just a bit. So let's go over to Brian Good so he can show the motion of how this has been evolving when we first picked it out as it was across southern Nelson County.
Yeah, you caught it right when it was moving to that area, and here it goes, that Boeing segment. And you're right, that anytime we see that backward C shape, that's what we need to watch out for. And it's moving right along the county line here of Washington and Marion County. So a huge heads up here. Expect some type of wind damage, this type of a wind surge that is raking across the northern parts there of Lebanon all the way into Springfield, into Kentucky. You're getting a big heads up at the moment. Warnings are in place for you guys to make sure you're aware. But again, this is not a tornado warning setup. This is a straight line wind setup. So some people sometimes wait to hear another type of alert or a siren to go off. This is not the case. All right, your weather radio, our notifications here we're giving you on the app and on TV are the ways to know. And these situations can be more dangerous than even tornado situations can be. And certainly that's been the case tonight. These have caused the biggest problems. And they're moving so fast, Kevin. This is only going to take 20-25 minutes, and it should be on the other side of our viewing area about to move out. So it gives us an idea, too, how strong those winds could be.
You know, you mentioned that backward C. When we see that shape, and let me zoom out just a little bit, we can see damage across a pretty large scope of geography and real estate with something like this. So I'm going to zoom back in. I just didn't want to be as tight as I was, so let me come back to something like that. It's anywhere between the point of Nelson, Washington, and Marion, through Loretto, down through Raywick. It's that whole area that could see wind damage, with the core of it moving through Loretto. I know that area very well. It's where my grandparents are from. It's where my mom grew up. It's where my brother owns the food land. And so it's Loretto that is getting hit hard now. As we continue to track that past, this will move into southern Washington County. So you're going to need to be on guard. If you are in southern Washington or northern parts of Marion County, you need to stay away from windows. You've got to get to the lowest level. These winds will blow windows out pretty quickly, certainly down some trees. So this is going to be problematic as this moves along the Marion-Washington County line, as we move that at a pretty good pace as well, moving anywhere between 45 and 55 miles an hour. Strongest winds coming through as we're looking near the Loretto area. That would take you up through Highway 49, Frogtown Road. Those are just some areas that Brian's looking at of where we would have the greatest wind speeds, taking that closer to the Washington County line. So again, Springfield, you're not out of the woods on this. That's the heaviest pocket of wind that we are tracking anywhere across the viewing area. The core of that is located right across Loretto at this point, while Frankfort and Shelbyville have some wind that has eased just a bit. And now we see a pocket of heavy wind moving through western parts of Marion County and even down into northern parts of Greene County. Some of that strong wind trying to move into that area. So that's not too far away. That would be down toward Atilia. So it's the same sort of backward C that we've talked about that has that greatest push of wind moving through. So we've talked a lot about wind today, measuring 82 miles per hour at the Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport, seeing the fact that we have had damage. We have crews on the scene of where kids are being rescued out off of Wordle Avenue. I want to show you what that looks like, because that's the breaking news that's taking place across the area. And you'll notice trees are down in a number of places in the metro, and we also have some trees down on the Watterson Expressway. So we've seen a number of trees.
59 miles per hour in Lebanon.
59?
59.
Okay, so that's Lebanon. That's ahead. I mean, that's a pretty good chunk ahead of even where the strongest winds may be. So it's only to say that they could get stronger. I suspect Loretto had at least 59 mile per hour winds, likely higher. The strongest core of that is going to go north of Lebanon and probably reach Springfield. Now, there's an airport in Springfield. We should probably get some observations from that as that moves closer within the next scan of the radar. So we're watching the wind down across central Kentucky, western and southwestern parts of Washington County, moving through northern parts of Marion County. This came through New Haven. It moved off into the Loretto, Raywick, and now pushing along the county line of Washington and Marion counties. Very strong winds moving through as we continue to track this. We pointed out here in Louisville that those winds did cause some problems. The biggest issue that we found so far from our newsroom happened to be a house that has somewhat collapsed or has a tree that is impeding entry into it. So Louisville Fire and Rescue have been sent out to Wordle Avenue to provide rescue of at least 3 kids that were in that home. Our live pictures have shown what that looks like from the scene, with a number of emergency personnel on site, and you could see them working. It's not just like they were blocking the street. They were actually working. Do we have that where we can show what's going on off of Wordle Avenue? Again, just to...
They just pulled apparently a kid out of the house. Is what they just now report to us.
Yes. So they're pulling, anyway, the kids are being rescued from that house. And on a wider view, maybe we can show it, but on the close-up views, they make it tough. Ryan Hoke is standing by with another update on some of the damage that we have seen across the area and some power outages that we currently see increasing.
Right, so we've had a few more reports from Louisville here of what's gone on. Alexis says she had a tree hit her house and uprooted, pulled the power line down from their house attached to their home. They still have power, but they're waiting for LG&E. Greenwood and Dixie in PRP is where that location is. This is Fern Creek and Highview. You can see a pretty big tree branch down there. And check this out. This is, yikes, not good. On a neighbor's house somewhere in Louisville, trying to get the exact location here, but you can see how a very large tree limb there fell right in the middle of that house. Yikes, that is such a common story we're hearing. I do want to point out Spencer County. Spencer County, you are having a significant power outage. Nearly half of Spencer County's tracked customers, 3,500 customers, are without power. So that's a pretty big situation there. We have Jefferson County now with 24,235. That number has gone up now. Nearly 6% of Louisville is without power. Hello, Bullitt County, 22.5% of Bullitt County. That's nearly 9,000 customers, not people, but customers. The number of affected people is probably far higher because you have multiple customers per house there. And of course, almost 10% of Clark County, Indiana, that's 6,600 folks, customers without power at this time. These numbers are getting pretty significant. That Spencer County number, nearly half of Spencer County guys without power. That is pretty tremendous.
No question. And we see the pockets of wind that we are still tracking that are showing tremendous wind potential. That strongest pocket is moving across north Washington County. At this point, looking at the data, we're still possibly seeing upwards of 80 to 85 mile per hour winds based on the radar. Keep in mind that's the radar height, beam height, so it doesn't mean that's what's actually reaching the ground. But even if we were to have half of that, we'd be seeing 40+ mile an hour winds, and that can certainly cause some problems. So while this area has our greatest attention because of the wind that is approaching the Springfield area, Lebanon is in on that too. We've already measured over 50+ mile per hour winds out of Lebanon. I have a feeling it's been even higher as we track that across southern Nelson County into western Marion County, including Loretto, where sort of hit the bullseye there and now working its way along the county line. We continue to see that that is the strongest wind that we have on radar. I'll zoom this out, and as we go to our home view, there are others seeing strong storms. There's no doubt about it, but that is the strongest wind that we have. The severe thunderstorm warnings continue, and we're probably going to be dealing with these storms for another 45 minutes to an hour before we get them out of the viewing area. Once that happens, things will calm down. So we'll be on target to have them out of here by midnight, it looks like, and that's what we were thinking. So the end time is going to be okay. Back to the radar view, just to point out that Louisville is now clearing out of the rain. We see that pushing with the line of thunderstorms. They're all severe warned, but not tornado warned. You can still see the hook on that leading cell. Again, it's on its own. It has the ability to tap into the atmosphere. This line will likely soon catch up with it, but nonetheless, there is a hook on that storm not far from Jamestown that's been down toward the Russell County area near Lake Cumberland. And for us, we'll continue to track these storms through here, but for now, it really is along the Washington-Marion County line that we have the greatest potential for wind damage. Brian Goods got his eyes on that, and Brian, I know the radar is showing anywhere between 70 to 80+ mile per hour winds.
Yeah, I still haven't got the gust jet out of Springfield. I'm watching that and seeing when that report comes in. What we don't want to see is this apex a little too far out of its push, because that can lead to some rotation within that. So we don't want that. So right now it's already bad enough, but we'll be watching it carefully as it moves right over Springfield into not far from Gravel Switch, and eventually it's going to be out of our viewing area and then moving in toward Harrodsburg, Kentucky. It's moving so fast. This radar is showing it here in Springfield to east of Lebanon. I can guarantee you it's way past that already. These radars can't keep up with these type of events that move rapidly like this. So I'm sure the wind gust is more into Gravel Switch now, heading into the eastern side there in Washington County.
I want to point out, I was just measuring on that apex that you mentioned, Brian, that the wind speed there was 88 miles per hour based on the radar.
Wow.
So again, if we're translating down a fraction of that, we're still getting some massive winds.
Yeah, it's still way above the threshold of 58.
Yeah, and has the potential to really be destructive if we're getting it even more. I mean, you get some heavy rain, it pulls a lot of that wind down to the surface.
And we had a lot of heavy rain this morning, so this area picked up enough that the ground's very, very saturated here. So even a 50-mile-per-hour wind would lead to wind damage. We saw that in Borden, Indiana, into Clark County from what happened about 2 hours ago. Just wind gusts were likely under severe limits, but still caused a lot of wind damage. Now take that and nearly add 20 miles per hour to that and to a very saturated soil, and that's not what you want to see happen here. This can lead to much more of a widespread issue. And Kevin, I know your family's there. Hope they're anchored down safe as well.
We've just made a few text messages to those folks, and we'll keep an eye on what's happening there. We would love to hear from folks that are in any of these areas when it's safe to do so. I know Ryan is reaching out to both Washington and Marion County emergency managers to determine if we've had any damage in that zone. So we'll be reporting that back to you. You've probably noticed behind me some of the images. The lightning has eased a bit here in Louisville from our SkyTrack. The radar obviously is easing a bit across southern Indiana and the Louisville area, Meade County, almost all of Hardin County, Breckenridge County, seeing that easing trend. Bullitt County's in that, Oldham up to Trimble and Carroll County in that. So we're starting to ease back, and we are going to be able to get some rest tonight. So if you were worried that you'd be up all night with storms, that's not going to happen. These will move through, and that will be the end of the severe weather, setting up for a pretty nice weekend. We have had damage, and I want to be able to show you that. Breaking news has been pouring in with these trees that are down, and the kids that have been rescued or are in the process of being rescued out off of Wordle Avenue, and that's in the Taylor-Berry area. So let me point out what's happening there with fire and EMS on the scene. You can see power is out. LG&E obviously working to secure power that has been knocked down by a number of places across the county. Last report from Ryan has been over 24,000 customers without power as that's moved through Jefferson County alone. There have been other places that have been affected as well, including KU and Duke Energy, but that's what we know as of this point, and those numbers keep going up. So that is an area that we'll be continuing to watch as that continues to pass through and we get new information in. Again, what you're looking at here is Wordle Avenue near the Shively area, where we have fire and EMS on the scene. Working to rescue individuals that are in this house. It's tough to speculate what's happened here. What we could see earlier, and I know Mark Wilson is on the scene, if he could give us a wider view to see any storm damage, like a tree that may have been into that house, or was it the house that just somehow collapsed under the force of the wind that moved through? We're not certain. But what we do know is that you can clearly see a compromised structure here that has apparently been hit by a tree. I can see that in the foreground. So something has caused that part of the house to collapse, and it looks like it's just a giant tree that may be in that house or across it. And whether that was a living room, a child's bedroom, who knows? What we do know is that kids that were in that home are now being rescued off of Wordle Avenue in Shively. While that home has sustained massive damage, the home next to it appears like nothing has happened. And it's because that tree has landed on that home. And it was no match for the weight of that tree that fell into that house. Obviously, firefighters and emergency personnel standing by and working hard. You can imagine with what that may look like inside with the broken boards and the structure that is now compromised. They have to first make sure it's safe for them to enter, make sure the people inside are not hurt, and if they are, provide triage to them before they make an exit out. And that's not always the easiest thing to do. You're watching it unfold live right here on WAVE while we continue to watch where additional pockets of wind are rolling through WAVE country. All right, let's go to Brian Good, now tracking that wind we were watching across Washington County and northern parts of Marion County. It's past Lebanon.
Yeah, that's the strongest we've got, but I don't like seeing these little notches in here. So we need to watch this as it moves across Taylor County, even another surge right over Greensburg starting to bow out there. So even though we've been focused on the strongest, obviously happening there in Marion County, Washington County, we're not ignoring you guys right in this area just just south and east of the Bluegrass Parkway, where there is at least some strong wind potential that is showing up. And again, right over Greensburg, winds right now are already estimated over 50 miles per hour. We should get some ground truth to that, I'm hoping, here soon. I do know that, let's see, where's this at? This is not too far away. Well, Marion County gusts it up to 39 again, but we'll get a wind gust hopefully out of Greensburg here in a second, Kevin. But this is going to be the last of our severe wind potential, is this section of the line, but it's going to take maybe 30 minutes, but it won't take too long to get it all the way through, it looks like.
Yeah, so again, by midnight, it's completely out of here, maybe even before that. I see the Mesonet station down in Loretto. That, again, was where we were tracking that 59-mile-per-hour winds with that. That, again, continues to move off to the east, so we're tracking that now across southern Washington, northeastern parts of Marion County. That will soon be out of the viewing area, moving over closer to Boyle County as with the next 15 minutes. All right, let's go to Ryan Hoke.
Okay, just got off the phone with Washington and Marion counties. Washington County Dispatch says they have a tree down on Mackville Road there and construction signs that have blown into roadways across the county, so please use caution. Marion County says they are very, very busy right now. They have a lot of calls as the storms are still moving through there. I want to show you this from Facebook. Stacy Smith, huge limb snapped on South Birchwood Avenue in Louisville near Crescent Hill Baptist Church. This smashed the back end of a vehicle there. You can see that silver hatchback convertible there. Considerable damage there. Stories like this all across the metro area right now, with trees on houses, trees on vehicles. The power outage numbers as of 11 p.m. continue to be very impressive, with a nearly half outage there in Spencer County there. 47.3% of Spencer County without power. Here's an update on Louisville. Still about 6%, still about 24,235 customers without power at this time. Washington County, Indiana, has been a problem this evening for power outages, especially near Pekin there. 14.8% of Washington County, Indiana, without power. That's about 3,500 customers at this time. Let's finally get you down to Hardin County, and that's where we see about 11.3% of customers in Hardin County without power. That's about 3,700 folks down there from West Point to Radcliffe to E-Town. We're tracking, of course, the power outages for you folks down there in Hardin County. So this is a pretty widespread wind event in a year when we've had so many freak wind or freak weather events, I really should say. Add this one to the list. It wasn't necessarily the tornadoes that got us today. It was the strange sort of downburst winds, not even associated with thunderstorms sometimes, that produced an 82-mile-per-hour gust here in Louisville, guys. And unfortunately, we're paying the price with power outages and damage.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're going to see more and more trees on cars, homes, businesses, whatever that may be. You can see we are tracking all of the breaking news that's unfolding across the area while we continue to track pockets of strong wind. The only real big concern that we've had on the radar had to have been what's now moving out of the viewing area, but it's still in southern parts of Washington, northern parts of Marion County. Give it another 10 minutes and that will be moving through. We also, along that stretch, taking you through Campbellsville toward Munfordville, have some strong winds. This is the zone that can still produce those 60, 70 mile per hour winds that would cause some damage as they move through. So most other folks are out of the woods and will get a nice night's rest. So let me just zoom into the area of concern. Severe thunderstorm warnings are in place. You can see anywhere from southeastern parts of Washington, northeast Marion County. That would be one area of strong wind. I'll zoom in even a little closer. Let me put on the velocity here. And as we take a closer view of that velocity, let me put in, I think that's going to be too far away. Let me go back. You can see where that strongest wind is now, already moving across the county line, closer to Perryville. This is Washington County, Marion County, not far from Gravel Switch. So the worst has likely already occurred, moving out of the viewing areas. We continue to track that off to the east. So we know in Loretto we had 60 mile per hour winds. Lebanon, we know we had close to that, 56 mile per hour winds. Areas farther to the south, yes, we still have winds showing up on that sort of Boeing area, stretching anywhere from Gravel Switch through Bradfordsville down to Campbellsville. That is the push of wind next to move into the Mansville area. That goes all the way down toward Black Nant and Greensburg. The radar runs out because we're on the Louisville radar. Let me change this over to the velocity from the wider view, and you can still see that that wind pushes even farther to the south. So we do still have some strong wind showing up on the velocity, and that will be the case for the next 30 to 45 minutes, it looks like, and that should take us to about the top of the hour at midnight. Back to the home view. Once we pass that through, and again, the strongest wind moving away and out of our viewing area, things will be calming down. We've already seen that across the majority of the viewing area. When we look at our reports, I'm going to show you the Imping wind reports that we've had, and just pay attention to the legend, and you're going to notice the reds with the trees uprooted. You start to get these pinks in here, and there are a number of those. That means whatever has happened is destroyed. That's pretty rare. We don't see wind speeds like that very often. Most of the time it's tree limbs down or tree limbs snapped, maybe even a power line snapped in that case, and not far from Elizabethtown. But these are the reports that have been sent in from those of you on the ground. And there's nothing better in severe weather than real-time reports, the ground truth. That really helps. So we've seen that in terms of the damage. So we will continue to track this. Notice the core of the damage, obviously in the population too, but also it has been easing just a bit as these storms continue to move. This is a uprooted tree in the area of we're concerned now, and now moving into Boyle County, but that would be across southern Washington, northern Marion County. So those are just some of the reports. New severe thunderstorm warning coming out. I'll get you to that. I wanted to put on the local storm reports here real quick, and just to confirm that we've had a number of wind reports. Funnel cloud off to the south. We were tracking that into Adair County. We all have had a number of wind reports and some hail. The latest severe thunderstorm warning coming out is going to include parts of Boyle, Garrett, Madison, Russell. I suspect it triggered our viewing area because it barely clipped. I mean, there you see Danville. Let me center this up, and as I move it, again, it's all because of the wind with tornado possible, 70 miles per hour. So, again, it's replacing, but this does include parts of Adair County. So that is the reason that that is included. Now, the one you're seeing now is the one that's going to expire at 11:30. The one that will replace that is the one for southern Adair County. Once that one is out of here, so once we can transition to this one, by midnight, it will be out of the viewing area, if not just before. So let's go over to Brian Good.
Yeah, I was just looking ahead to see what is going to be next in the short term. And for Indiana, there is still some modest amounts of fuel that is still here. The wind shift where the front is taking place is just not hitting the Wabash, so we can't technically clear Indiana just yet. We're getting closer. There is still a bit of a line that wants to try to connect out of Ohio. We'll see if that can try to build down in Indiana. It would be more than likely sub-severe if it was even able to root down at all and develop. But that's the reason why we can't clear Indiana technically just entirely just yet until we get that front and that wind shift to completely move through the area. But no doubt the air has been worked over in a tremendous way. Look at this line, though, lining up all the way from areas of Ohio all the way through Kentucky, Somerset, Kentucky. Been watching that cell, too. That has been a nasty signature on the radar. That's probably one of the worst storms in Kentucky, other than the strong winds moving through eastern Marion County. That storm in Somerset and Pulaski County has got quite the hook to it there. Ryan, you've been keeping an eye on the social media side, which I'm sure has lit up in the past hour for sure.
Yeah, you know, as people are kind of making their way out and seeing what's happened in their backyard here, they've captured some interesting images and they're sending them to us here. Hello, Toby in Hillview. Huge tree fell right in front of their front door. They can't get out of the front door. That's what the back door, I guess, is for, so they can get out of their house there. And then look at this. This is significant siding damage in PRP from Jennifer Pierce. Yikes, that's going to take some time to repair there. It doesn't look structural, but that is inconvenient to say the least. I've also just been off the phone with the Marion County emergency manager. She says they have trees down across the county. However, no houses have been hit and no injuries are to be reported right now in Marion County. So for all the kind of drama with the 59-mile-per-hour wind gusts we saw there in Marion County, so far, nothing super bad has happened with that, guys. Just kind of the standard trees down situation.
Appreciate the emergency managers and the work they do along with all the emergency personnel. It has been a long and arduous evening to make sure that everybody's staying ahead of what's going on, especially for those emergency folks. You can see the tornado watch has been let go here in Louisville. The one off to our east will stay in place until technically 3 a.m., but our counties will be out of the threat of severe weather by midnight. When we check the radar, you can see that the thunderstorms continue to our south. That is the area off to our south that we have to worry about. So let's zoom into that, and then I'm going to take you back across the region and really look at what's happened. And we have a lot of images that have come in from viewers like you, whether you're posting those to our Facebook page on Wave Weather or whether you're sending those in through the Wave Weather app. If you're watching, our live stream has been ongoing since early this evening, and that's on Wave Weather Now, Louisville's only 24/7 streaming weather channel every day, not just in severe weather. You'll notice Greensburg, Campbellsville, it's this zone here. We could have some strong winds. It's that curvature, that push of wind that we could see 50 to 60 mile per hour winds. That's the reason the severe thunderstorm warning is in place. Brian mentioned this supercell that has the hook on it. That one's moving over toward past Somerset, so it's passing the lake. Nonetheless, still showing that robust, I mean, this has been on the ground, not on the ground, but on the radar for hours and hours. This thing started out in Missouri and has been just plowing across southern Kentucky for hours now, at times producing damage. More than not, it's behaved, and I think the worst is coming out of Louisville with those 82-mile-an-hour winds that we've measured. We measured that at the airport, and we had 80-plus-mile-an-hour winds on one of the buildings downtown. That transitioned over across parts of Spencer and Shelby counties, and then we saw sort of another pocket of strong winds moving into Marion County. But as you heard Ryan just report from the emergency manager, that there hasn't been a whole lot of damage there, and that's good news. Trees down. We can clean that up. When you start crushing cars and houses and having rescues take place like we have off of Wordle here in Louisville, that becomes a little more of a problem, and that's what we've seen. We still have a tremendous amount of lightning with all of these storms as they push through. Again, severe thunderstorm warnings for wind, not hail. We thought we could have the potential for very large hail today. In fact, the potential was there. We didn't realize that here in Louisville. What was the largest hail that you guys saw? Upwards of maybe golf ball size? I think we had larger hail this morning.
At quarters, as far as I've seen measured.
Quarters tonight, yeah.
Okay.
I think you're right.
Outside of the area, it's been up to baseball size around, say, Sullivan Lake area.
Yeah.
But that's about the highest I've seen is quarter.
So the larger hail was this morning where we had some of those larger stones of hail, and then since then up to quarter-size hail through the evening here. So the hail hasn't been the biggest issue. Tornadoes really haven't been the biggest issue. What has been? The wind and these pockets of very strong wind. And the reason why is we have an area of low pressure to the north, high pressure to the south, the jet stream coming in across us. We knew the wind fields would be howling, and boy, have they ever. And we saw that it just took a little bit of light rain to even bring them down to the surface, and even without a massive thunderstorm, we had 80-plus mile-per-hour winds downtown. All right, let's again sort of reset. I'll clear out a number of areas. Our time is 11:20. We have a decision to make. We'll track these storms through the viewing area, and once they pass by, we'll get you back to late night programming. So we're obviously taking up the time for Wave News at 11, and we have breaking news that's occurring right now in Louisville. I want to be able to give you some information on that as well before the midnight hour rolls around. By then, it will all be clear. Everybody in Louisville clear, all of southern Indiana clear, Meade County clear, Bullitt County clear, Spencer up to Shelby, Oldham, Trimble, Carroll, all clear. We work our way to the south, well, almost clear in Breckenridge and Hardin and Grayson. Almost. We'll watch this one storm that's still developing. So let's give that another half hour, 40 minutes, and that'll be moving through. And then the same story for Hart, Greene, Taylor, Adair, Marion, Washington. Those are the cluster of counties that we'll be watching over the course of the next half hour. Then those storms will be past us, and we'll all be able to say goodnight and get to a nice-looking weekend. That's what's happening on the radar. Again, pockets of wind, but the bulk of that is even easing as it moves out of our viewing area. I want to be able to take you around the region and show you what's happening. We have power that have been knocked out in a number of places. Ryan Hoke's going to show us those numbers coming up in a second. But let me take you out to western parts of Jefferson County. This is where the Louisville Fire and EMS have been working to rescue at least 3 kids that we know of that have been inside a home that had a tree crush it. You're watching the view from the storm tracker at this point. It's a little bit of a distance away. Logan Perrone is just arriving to the scene, but we've had crews on the scene that have been showing us what that has looked like. You can see the emergency vehicles and personnel just down the street, and they have been working hard to not only secure the area that they're working in, which is a collapsed house because a tree is on top of it, but we understand that there have been some kids inside that are working to be rescued. So I don't know if Logan is available or if we can show Mark Wilson's vantage point, and we'll be able to show you what's happening there live. So I know anytime we're in this breaking situation, it's all fluid. We want to get you the information as fast as we can. So we're working to get an interview with what has actually happened there and what it was like and what it is like now on the scene. Obviously, the one thing that you can clearly notice, there's no power. And with 82-mile-per-hour winds moving through, it certainly has knocked out power. In fact, the first clue that the winds were as strong as they were is when Brian looked up at the SkyTrack camera from the one we have at Kentucky Kingdom, and it was looking out to the south and southwest, and he said, "Oh, look at that. The transformers just blew." And that's when we knew that we had some massive wind coming in to the airport and to the city. It measured 82 miles an hour. Let's go out near Wordle Avenue where Logan Perrone is standing by. Hi, Logan.
Hey guys, yeah, I'm here with Tony Downs. He's with the Louisville Fire Department. And Tony, if you can just give me a rundown of what happened here tonight. We see the tree behind you, but talk about your operation.
This evening we were dispatched by Metro Safe to a house with a tree on it with rescues. Came in about 10:17 p.m. It took us 5 minutes to arrive. Once we got on scene, we had 3 victims trapped. Called for specialty companies for structural collapse. 52 minutes later, we removed 3 victims, which all were transported by Metro EMS with what appears to be non-life-threatening injuries.
And then if you could just talk to us about the operation. You said you called out a specialty unit. Just talk about how difficult it was to get them out.
Again, don't have a lot of information on that right now. It appears that we used some airbags and other tools just to remove the tree off of the victims and able to scoot the victims out and transport them to safety.
And then just how much work goes into getting ready for something like this?
Again, just like any of the other specialty rescues that we've seen around Jefferson County lately, we always train for this. Just so happens we've been using it a few times lately.
Well, Tony, thank you guys very much. And again, we'll continue to cover as much as we can with this tree down on Wordle Ave. But for now, we'll send it back to you guys.
All right. Appreciate that, Logan. Thank you. I was going to ask, and we'll ask Logan to ask if those kids were injured. I know we saw one of those going out on a stretcher, so I was curious the intense or the how intense the injuries may or may not have been. Maybe there was no injuries at all.
I think he said non-life-threatening, but yeah.
So just scraps, bruises, that kind of thing.
Yeah,
okay, I was curious. All right, so that again, over near Valley Station, western parts of Jefferson County hit hard. A number of other areas have been hit with downed trees. Haven't had a whole lot of hail, but we have had tree damage, and consequently that led to a lot of power outages. We're still seeing some of those move through. For folks that are watching off to our south, we're watching the storms. The fact is you're under the severe thunderstorm warning. There's no real big pocket of wind that we have been tracking. It's just in general there could be wind gusts 50 miles per hour. Probably most of these will be below severe limits. You see the new severe thunderstorm warning coming out. Again, this is going to be areas to our south. This will include parts of Greene County, so it stretches back into Greene County, and that's a severe thunderstorm warning until 12:15. So again, Greene County, parts of Barron, parts of Metcalfe, Allen County until 12:15. This is a severe thunderstorm warning. Comes with the tornado possible tag. Let me just square this up so you can get your bearings of where we are. Again, here's Hart County, Munfordville. We go down to Bowling Green, but you can see they've drawn this warning all the way up into parts of Greene County. So we'll eventually move this through. It's likely for this Boeing segment here that will be pushing off to the east and clipping the southern parts of Greene County. Okay, let's go over to Ryan Hoke. He's been keeping an eye on a lot of the power outages and the other damage reports that you've been sending in.
Yeah, sending in via the Wave Weather app. That's what we're focused on for now. That's where Russ Hamaker sent in a photo here of a tree on a house in Mount Washington. You can see the branches there kind of overlaying the house and what looks like a patio there, a covered patio. Yikes. This is a tree down on Wolf Avenue. This is here in Louisville. This is across from the fairgrounds off Preston Highway. And you can see that's a pretty large tree in front of that house. And then this is a video from Jeremy Davidson of the Wax boat ramp on Nolan Lake there, and a lot of lightning through there that you just saw just a moment ago. Let's get you to the power outages here. This map continues to evolve here. Meade County is kind of the newest contender here with a 1,500 customer power outage totaling about 10% of tracked customers there in Meade County. Spencer County, we've been talking about you because your power outages have been pretty significant, and it has gone up. It's gotten worse, if you can believe that. 52%, over half now, of Spencer County's tracked customers. That's about 3,800 customers without power. Yikes. And then Bullitt County, that's where we find a pretty significant power outage down that way, about 20% without power. That's about 8,200 customers. Let's do Louisville here. This is Jefferson County, 27,607 customers without power. This has gone up again. And remember, the storms moved through here, what has it been, over an hour ago? Yikes, 6.7%. It may very well be that they have to take more customers out of power to get these tree branches and, things cleaned up with the lines, trying to get folks back into power. Shelby County, that's going to be Shelbyville, about 11% without power. That's 1,000 customers there. And let's wrap it up with Clark County, Indiana. That's Jeffersonville, that's Henryville, New Washington, Borden, nearly 10% without power. It's about 6,700 customers. So pretty significant power outage here in the metro. Over 25,000 customers still without power. And of course, Spencer County, Kevin, that's where we're tracking more than half of the county without power.
Wow. And of course, that was where we were seeing that pocket of strong wind that Brian was pointing out, especially along northern Spencer, southern parts of Shelby County. So we know they had some pretty powerful winds there as well. While most of the area is starting to step into the clear, we're not there yet for our southernmost counties. So I'm going to zoom back into that region to the south, point out down across parts of Greene County where we do have some strong winds. We've just been noting that you're under the severe thunderstorm warning until 12:15. And while Greensburg is there, that's where we see another area of fairly strong wind. We can see that on the velocity. And you can see that pocket of wind just south of Greensburg. So that's another area that will need to be watched as we continue to track this off to the east. Severe thunderstorm warning remains in place, but another area of wind that is starting to develop across central parts of Greene County. If we track that, would move across southern parts of Taylor County and then eventually into northern parts of Adair County. So that's what we're looking at. Our plan at this point, it's 11:30. Coming up at 11:35, we'd typically be joining the Tonight Show. We're going to keep it because of breaking news. It's been a busy weather day. When we started this coverage earlier in the afternoon, we knew that things would go south pretty quickly. And we saw that from our sister station out in St. Louis at KMOV, where they had an actual tornado move through the city of St. Louis or one of the nearby suburbs. That caused some major damage. We moved this through southern Illinois, damage. Moved it into southern parts of Indiana near Evansville, damage. And we've been tracking that through Louisville, where we had 82-mile-per-hour winds and damage. So we're going to sort of recap over the next half hour here of what's gone on today. We'll let folks in the newsroom gather a little bit of video so we're able to show that. We'll check back in with Logan Perrone out off of Wordle, where they are at that home collapse because the tree fell on the house. 3 kids had to be rescued. You just heard from Louisville Fire and EMS talk about how that rescue operation unfolded. But as we're gathering that information and checking back in over the next 29 minutes, we are still focused on a couple of pockets of wind, and a lot of you are curious about the weekend. So let's go over to Brian Good. Again, Brian, strongest wind I can see on the radar now, moving through central parts of Greene County up into Taylor County, perhaps just north of Campbellsville and south of Phillipsburg. A little blast of wind there.
Yeah, that's our main part of the line in our viewing area. It's worth mentioning there is a large and destructive tornado on the ground in London, Kentucky that just passed Somerset. We've been talking about that earlier, but it's going wild on social media right now. A lot of folks are getting video of this, but again, it's doing damage in southeast areas of Kentucky. It's out of our viewing area, but that is by far the most destructive storm in the entire Commonwealth right now, is that cell there. It is worth mentioning, I mentioned this earlier, that there is still a chance to get thunderstorms to redevelop in Indiana over the next hour or two. But let me caution you, the severe risk is not high at all for this very last and final round. I just want to stress the front has not cleared your area, so you could still get some thunderstorms. So don't want you guys to be concerned if you hear a rumble of thunder in about an hour or two, say in Seymour or Madison, Indiana, and think that severe weather is coming back into play. The ingredients for severe weather have been yanked out, but the ingredients for at least thunderstorms are at least still there. And that will be the case until the wind shift happens, but that may take until about 4 or 5 in the morning to get that through. So we'll let you guys know not to worry about severe weather there, but also don't be surprised if you hear some thunder and a bit of heavy rain tonight. So we're winding things down, Kevin. The last of severe weather is really about another 20 minutes or so in our far southern counties. And then after that, just some garden variety storms for the overnight.
All right, and that's the good part, is that there is an end in sight for everybody and that the weekend looks good. We've got plenty of sunshine Saturday, probably staying in the mid to upper 70s Saturday and Sunday. Sunday brings in just a few more clouds than what we'll notice tomorrow. Nonetheless, tonight is what's in sight, and we are tracking these strong winds moving off to the south. Campbellsville, you've been under the pressure of some strong winds probably 2 or 3 times already today, and now you've got one more little blast moving through. Once that passes, it moves into northern parts of Adair County. That will be over near Clementsville, just north of Kane Valley, and then that will be pushing past. So we will expire one part of the warning for Adair County. That one also included parts of Marion, LaRue, Nelson. So you're going to see a lot of the expirations unfold. In fact, when you look at the sort of wider view, all of the action is to our south and east. When you look at the big board, you can see the warnings that we have. The Adair, Green, Hart, Taylor for another 43 minutes. That's the one that goes until 15 past the hour. And then the one for Adair for another 30 minutes. We'll get you to the top of the hour with weather coverage and news that has been coming into the newsroom. Because we have had a number of trees down, and we do have a lot of power outages. So we're going to go through each of those. We're going to check back in with Logan Perrone, who's at the scene of the collapse where the tree fell on the house. 3 kids had to be rescued by Louisville Fire and EMS. So it has been a busy day, and it will continue to be likely tomorrow for some cleaning up, because I have a feeling that there are trees down that people don't even know about just yet. If they're not causing problems, you may not know until you see it in the daylight. So much of this has occurred during the evening and darkness that we've had through the evening hours. So what we had feared all week long, for a week now, where we said late week, we've got the alert day in place, you're going to need to pay attention. And then as time drew closer, we were like, man, this looks like it really could be something. Possibly an outbreak, certainly have a lot of wind energy to deal with. And here we are. This is how it unfolded. 2 rounds of storms like we thought for this alert day, one early in the morning, the second one occurring this evening. At this point, we're almost out of the woods. The exception would be our southernmost counties. That's going to be southern parts of Hart County, Greene, Taylor, and Adair. Everybody else in the clear. So the southern 4 counties that we serve, out of the 34 that we have, you're going to notice we still have some wind, but even that over the last couple of scans is easing. So this is where it would be, moving right through and south of Greensburg on that county line.
The storm, and it's get a little bit more depth and more pace on the first attack.
What first attack?
In the daylight. So much of this has occurred during the evening and darkness that we've had through the evening hours. So what we had feared all week long, for a week now, where we said late week, we've got the alert day in place, you're going to need to pay attention. And then as time drew closer, we were like, man, this looks like it really could be something. possibly an outbreak, certainly have a lot of wind energy to deal with. And here we are. This is how it unfolded. 2 rounds of storms like we thought for this alert day, one early in the morning, the second one occurring this evening. At this point, we're almost out of the woods. The exception would be our southernmost counties. That's going to be southern parts of Hart County, Greene, Taylor, and Adair. Everybody else in the clear. So the southern 4 counties that we serve, out of the 34 that we have, you're going to notice we still have some wind. But even that, over the last couple of scans, is easing. So this is where it would be, moving right through and south of Greensburg on that county line into Taylor County. That's a pocket of wind that will push through. Heavy rain, too. A lot of lightning has been noted with these storms. We look at the velocity to see if it's increased or decreased. You can see actually the heaviest pocket of wind is up just south of Campbellsville right now. That will be moving off to the north and east. So, again, another area of wind just off to the east of Glasgow, and that's just west of Edmonton. That is where we had that one storm that's probably the same one over near London that moved across the area and had that hook. I mean, that really looked wild for a period of time. I'm going to zoom this.
They're even giving 75-mile-per-hour wind gusts south of Bowling Green right now.
Oh, really?
That tornado warning, it's out near Allen County.
That's near the Scottsville area? Yeah, so when we zoom out, I'll tilt the radar down there so you can see, most of the action is moving out of our viewing area. But again, these pockets of wind in Taylor, down into Greene, and then pushing farther to the south, and then you can see that couplet with that one near Scottsville, as Brian mentioned, south of Bowling Green. And then, of course, the one over near London is the one that really has developed and has the sharp hook on it. That's that supercell that's been on the map for hours. Where did that started in Missouri? That storm's been going for hours.
I'm starting to lose track a little bit. I think so, yeah. It's been a good 4.5, 5 hours now.
Yeah.
But think about that. I mean, you couldn't even drive that in that amount of time. So these things have been moving so fast.
Right.
That's really what's adding to the wind energy on straight line winds. And obviously, anytime they have a chance to rotate, the rotation can be violent for at least 20-minute periods at a time there.
Yeah, and we've seen the wind really play out today to the radar view. Obviously, we've got the wind in this zone. It's right where you find the heaviest pockets of rain. And the idea is that the wind above the surface is howling. How do you get it down to the ground? Well, heavy rain will bring it down. So when you see the heaviest pockets of rain, oftentimes that's pulling that very strong wind down to the surface. So that's what we have going on. All right, let's go over to Ryan Hoke. He's been keeping an eye on a lot of the power outages. Are we over 25,000 yet for the city?
Yes, we've been over 25,000, about 27,000 here for a bit. We'll get to that in just a moment. I wanted to share with you some new damage information that we have from Taylorsville. Hello, Spencer County. We've been talking about you. Significant power outage there. You can see Sarah, this is her parents' house, by the way. Their backyard's kind of trashed with all the chairs everywhere, tree branches down, yikes. And this is new from southern Indiana. Hello to Gary. Gary, thank you for sending this in. Utica Pike in Jeffersonville is blocked near Jeff Boat by a tree that's crossing the road. And you can see it looks like Jeffersonville Fire is on the scene there trying to get that tree cleared out of the way. I'm sure some chainsaws will be involved here very shortly. All right, let's get you to the power outage map. That's what you came here for. That's what we're going to give you. Spencer County right now, that 52% power outage. That's 3,800 customers. Louisville, we were up to 27,000 customers without power earlier. That is currently where we sit. That is a 6.7% power outage. Hardin County right now, currently at a 13.6% power outage. That's significant. 4,500 customers at this time. Let's get you up toward Clark County, Indiana. That's a 9.8% power outage. 6,700 customers. Meade County also lighting up the map now with 1,500 customers without power. That's about 10% without power at this time. And hello to our neighbors to our east in Shelby County, nearly 11% without power at this time. These are pretty significant power outages. It's not just Louisville. It's our rural neighbors in southern Indiana and Kentucky, too, paying the price for these very fast winds that moved through tonight, taking down trees and power lines. And hats off to our power crews for working through the night to get everybody back on. This is going to take some time. Even though we don't have a huge concentration of very high power outage numbers here in the metro, it's going to take time for the lights to come back on. So you're going to need some patience here, Kevin, through the overnight and possibly through tomorrow, too.
Yeah, and good kudos to the crews that are out working, both in terms of electric folks and the fire and EMS folks who are out. You know, all of this started earlier this afternoon. afternoon. We saw these storms explode across parts of Missouri. Their atmosphere was primed for severe weather with the heating of the day. They didn't have the morning round of storms that we did, so we were sort of capped through at least part of the afternoon. But back out in parts of Missouri, these storms developed, and they blew up fast, and they put down tornadoes, likely large tornadoes that were on the ground. This one moved through one of the suburbs of St. Louis, just on the north side. This is a church that it hit. They can see that it did damage not only to the structures but to the cars that were there. This was a massive scene that unfolded on our sister station KMOV. At that church, there were a number of folks inside. 4 folks were killed in that storm, and we have some information that's just come in within the recent hours on what they were saying as that storm moved through.
And I could see the wind blowing real hard, and I told her, I said, look at that. And she said, run, get in the office. And by the time we got in the office, the whole building just collapsed, and it fell on our back and get us out. We climbed through the window in order to get out, but we wanted to be careful because there were live wires in there. And so I just said it might be a bad Friday for some people, but for me it's a good Friday, because when you look at this building, that lets you know it's a God, because there's no way that we could have walked out of there. We just kept praying.
Oh, I tell you, that was a scary sight to see, and obviously a very sad sight, leaving 4 dead as those storms moved through St. Louis. Other storms have been causing damage across parts of Illinois, western parts of Indiana, even Indianapolis, seeing some damage out of these storms earlier this evening. And we were not left unscathed here in Louisville. We've had 82-mile-an-hour winds that certainly have caused damage here in the city. Valley Station at this point appears to be one of the harder hit areas. It's at least one we're hearing about the most at this point, because we've had 3 kids that were trapped in the structure there. Those kids have been rescued. The structure still obviously left damage because a very large tree has fallen on it. Our very own Logan Perrone has been at that scene for the last little bit. He had the chance to talk to one of the firefighters earlier, Mr. Downs, getting some information on what had happened and what the process was moving forward to rescue those individuals that were left in that structure. Let's get out to Logan Perrone, who has been keeping an eye on what's happening near Valley Station.
Yeah, Kevin, and we're still here on World Labs. So is some of the fire departments, and LG&E is behind us. I'm going to step aside just so you can see how big this tree is. The car in front of it, well lit, the tree taking up the entire front yard, and then you can just see into the house. There are just a little bit broken windows. On the other side, obviously we can't show you right now, but you can see that the wall has slowly been pushed in from the other side of the house. Again, when we were able to speak with the fire department, they said that they were here within 5 minutes of the call. They were able to locate and help rescue 3 individuals, all of them under the age of 18, all of them expected to be okay. But again, just a massive scene like this is something that we've seen a lot of on smaller batches. We've seen a lot of smaller branches out and about. We've seen, again, we had showed you earlier, a bigger branch blocking a road in Valley Station. So again, a lot of stuff like this that the fire department, again, working on tonight. So again, like I said, 3 guys, 3 kids rescued. Kevin, we'll send it back to you.
All right, and Logan, it appears as though LG&E on the scene there, they're working hard as well. So all of the crews, as we mentioned, from fire, EMS to also those electrical crews out there. Again, we pointed out what happened in St. Louis. We've had damage in Evansville, Cape Girardeau, moving across southwest Indiana, moving into southern Indiana. Let me show you what this looked like as a semi-truck not far from the Seymour area went through. And you can see from the traffic cameras, that's near the way station, North Vernon. If you hang right, you're heading east, Seymour, you're going west. So we're not far from the Seymour-Jackson County area. This was earlier where the semi-truck crashed. And you can see that in the distance there. That backed up traffic for quite some time on I-65 northbound. So that was a bit of a problem, too, likely to be blamed on the weather. So we've had these accidents that have taken place before the sunset. And then once the sunset and the low-level jet kicked in, we really ramped up the winds. And as we did that, we measured the 82-mile-per-hour wind here in Louisville. Tonight, we continue to track across our southern communities some of that wind. It is not as strong as it was. Otherwise, we'd be really focused on that. We're keeping an eye on it. In fact, as I zoom into it, we'll kick it over to Brian Good. And Brian, jump in here. But we're looking at the southern part of the viewing area from Greensburg, Campbellsville down to Columbia, where we have at least a push of wind. Is it severe? Marginal.
Yeah, it's got a little bit of that S shape here to it, and that's where sometimes you get a bit of a stronger push when it gets a little more parallel to I-65, like north and south. So it'll be raking quickly across areas of, say, Dare County, but areas that have already been hit hard. I mean, we did have wind gusts. They're still getting over 60 miles per hour at times when that little pocket of wind was approaching. But in the past 10 minutes, I haven't seen anything close to that being reported, so that's a good sign. But still, this is the last little push, and it's not going to take no time to get this through the area. That's really the last of the bigger storms we've got in the region. Still tracking an active setup, though, all across the rest of Kentucky. Definitely a flash flooding setup across southern Kentucky into Tennessee that is unfolding. And we mentioned earlier in Somerset, the images coming out of Somerset don't look good. It looks like significant damage from a tornado there that, by the way, is still on the ground in London, Kentucky. Our sister stations there are monitoring that out of Lexington and Hazard, Kentucky at the moment. So these are still some big cells out there, but thankfully we're getting to the very tail end of our storyline here.
And that was the same storm we were tracking across southern Adair County, right?
Exactly. It just maintained itself, and really we think the originating point, we have to go all the way back and look. In fact, speaking of that, let me show you what led to the wind event earlier that produced that 82-mile-per-hour wind. This is, the airport officially measured it at 10:08, but this is how that burst of wind started, and it certainly is a downburst signature, not a tornado signature that we witnessed, that started right across the Louisville area, I would say southern Indiana, all the way through downtown, the Weather Garden, and there's the airport, and then the other little pocket that kind of separated that eventually went through Fern Creek, Okolona, off Cooper Chapel, Mount Washington Road, and then did the damage into Mount Washington itself. So there are different little pockets along this arc, but roughly between 10:05 to about 10:12, some of that window seems to have been the average report of when the most of the damage in Louisville took place. And Kevin, that 82-mile-per-hour wind gusts, the strongest thunderstorm wind gusts we've had since the super outbreak of tornadoes, April 3rd, 1974. That's wild. We had those strong winds, and of course in 1971 was a strong year. But we thought that wind event in 2023, March and April, was up there, and they were up there. One of those was thunderstorm related, the other was just general wind related. But it's remarkable we are able to talk about another record being set this close in time frame.
While you have that pulled up, will you flip that to the reflectivity just to show what was on that at 10:08? Because that was just bizarre to me as we were watching. There wasn't a ton of heavy rain going on. So again, what Brian was showing us earlier was the velocity of that wind. But notice at 10:08, we can even scrub that to where you can see what it was when that hit. I mean, it's it's just on that leading edge of that rain that boom came in, but was just enough to pull down that very strong wind field.
And there's a lot of speculation, too, that it was obviously an evaporation process that may have happening here, where a lot of these downpours that were basically falling apart. So the radar showed the rain falling aloft, but at the surface was a different storyline. That process can enhance wind like that. We don't see that very often here. Usually you have it on a very hot summer day, actually, when you get storms like that. This was up there. It was quite warm and humid, but that's something we'll have to look at later. But we do know so far in everything we've looked at, we don't see any sign of a tornado setup here. I'm sure that will be evaluated later, but all the signals right now, Kevin, point to a downburst wind scenario.
No question. And what a year it's been. I mean, Brian, we came off of Christmas into the New Year's weekend with massive snow, something we haven't seen in years. We've unfolded with 2 flooding events along the Ohio. We've had massive storms, the first since April 3rd of '74 with an EF3 in Jefferson County. And here we are on well, we're still on the 16th of May, and we've had one of the top 3 wind speeds that we've ever recorded.
I'll be honest, I'm really concerned about the locust.
Yeah, I think I hear them. Or are those just the cicadas outside?
Well, it's it's one of those things. We do have extreme weather in the Ohio Valley, and it does seem to go in cycles. And usually when you get weather patterns like this, it is hard to shake out of it. So
we say that all the time.
It's going to be an interesting end of May into early June, it looks like.
Yeah, for sure. The action continues. We've got another alert day next Tuesday. Probably not quite as robust as what we've seen today, but it still bears watching, and we'll be giving you updates on that through the weekend. Let's go over to Ryan Hoke.
Hey there. Yeah, so we've had to update this list that we have been referencing, but we haven't really seen a whole lot of here. There it is, 82 miles per hour that we saw tonight at the Louisville Muhammad Ali International Airport. As Brian was explaining, this was the third highest wind gust we've ever had at that airport since 1970. The 284 mile per hour gusts that occupy the top two spots were back in the 70s, the latest of which was April 3rd of 1974. We don't ever like to reference that, but unfortunately, it's been the worst wind we've had since then. And of course, back in 2023, we had several upper 70 miles per hour sort of wind gusts there. I want to share with you a couple new photos we've gotten from the Wave Weather app. This is from Damien. This is in Jacobs Addition there, which is near the Taylor Berry neighborhood. Trees down in the backyard there. Yikes. This is from Taylorsville. Tree down on the house there. Ella sending this one in. So yikes, not great in Spencer County. We're loading in, of course, the latest on the power outage numbers. Everybody wants to see that there. About 7% of Louisville's now without power. This has gone up again in Jefferson County. We're now up to 28,000 customers without power. Again, they may have to shut off some of the circuits in the neighborhoods to get trees and power lines kind of up safely there, so it may get worse before it gets better. That's kind of a long, arduous process there. 52% of customers in Spencer County, Kentucky. This is Taylorsville without power. That's 3,900 customers. Hello, Marion County. You're now starting to light up on the map there. 1,000 customers there, 10% without power in Marion County, and we'll wind up, kind of with Washington County, Indiana there, and you'll see that's a 14% power outage, 3,300 customers, and we have a new severe thunderstorm warning that's now at the top of your screen. We'll get to that here in just a second. I know we'll have some coverage of that, but for now, the power outages, of course,
continue to stack up. The tag on that, by the way, is 80 miles per hour, by the way, and it's because of that apex, that turning north-south on that orientation. I think that's the reason why. It's kind of a classic Boeing segment that you would have an apex like that that's slamming into Adair County there.
Yeah, let me just center that up so you can see it's not behind the box there. Again, just to get your bearings, this is Adair County here near Columbia, Greene County, moving out of the Edmonton area. There's Glasgow, so that storm, again, this is where we would see it as you look at Columbia. Probably right at this intersection here is where we would have the strongest of those winds moving in. So possibly the tornado tag is on it. Again, destructive winds, 80 mile per hour, one of the stronger ones we've seen tonight as far as severe thunderstorm warnings are concerned. We're at 8 minutes till. We'll continue to track this across parts of Adair County over the next few minutes, but that storm certainly has the potential, and we can look at that with the velocity, just to give you an idea of where those stronger winds are, but just based on the reflectivity, that's where it would be. You also see sort of that backward sea trying to develop. That would be a strong push of wind there. That would come across a good chunk, at least the southern half of Adair County. So that would be a concern as well, as that's what we watch push in. So two sort of areas of concern. One could be occurring here where we could see a little rotation. Otherwise, you'll note that backward sea is where we have the push of wind. That's why it bows out like that. You get the forward push of wind. It sort of reaches its apex as what's leading it. And that's always the strongest of the winds, right on the forward side of that. So that's what we're watching across or moving into far western parts of Adair County. And we'll keep a close eye on that. All right. We've gone through a lot of information for you tonight. It's coming up 7 minutes until midnight. Our plan is still to get you back to the nighttime programming on Wave. We'll continue to watch this storm, and if we have to break in, we will, but we'll be here for the next 7 minutes. We're getting some information in from down near Somerset, where we know we have damage that has occurred there from the tornado that's most likely that's been on the ground. It's the one that's moving through London now. Again, when you look at our radar, there are no tornado signs here, but obviously we have the wind that continues to push our southernmost county, and that's Adair County. Everybody else, pretty much in the clear at this point. So if you're listening to us in the viewing area of 34 counties and you're not in Adair County, you're good to go to bed and get some rest and enjoy the weekend that's coming your way. We're going to stay here and watch this storm for 7 more minutes at least, or 6 more minutes now as that continues to push through. I'm going to go back to the radar. I'm going to put the radar up, and then we'll go to our home view. We've done this many times tonight as we continue tracking what's happening across all 34 counties. We haven't had a ton of damage tonight, but we've had strong winds that have caused some damage. And I'll put that on through the local storm reports from the Weather Service. And you can see a number of hail reports, wind reports have been the major. This has been the tornado. We had the tornado at times on the ground. This was that same storm, moved through Bowling Green with tornado warnings, produced some large hail, wind damage there. Funnel cloud not far from Edmonton. Then as we moved it into Adair County, lifted, and then boom, it touched back down, and that's what we're starting to see. Number of downed trees there, and power lines have been broken. Southern Indiana, the bulk of that went just north of the viewing area. That was a tornado 2 that was on the ground not far from Bloomington. Let me pull that down so you can just see it. Oh, so close. I mean, we had this come through Indianapolis with hail, but between Indy and, say, Seymour, that's where we had a number of funnel clouds and a long track supercell that was likely putting down a tornado in a number of locations across the path of that storm. All right, back to the home view we go. That's one view that we looked at with the storm reports that have come in. We have also seen that the radar is clear now across southern Indiana. All good. Louisville, clear. We're tracking this to the south. The only area of concern, extreme southern Greene County, and now really it is into Adair County. Everything else continues to move farther to the south and east. I'll lift the radar up now and focus on what's across southern Kentucky. And that is the fact that that is the strongest storm that's been on the radar all day. This is the tornado-warned storm that's now moving through the London area. Passed by Somerset, wound up putting down probably the tornado there. Certainly wind damage. That tornado warning continues. That was the supercell that was on its own. And boy, it's been on the radar since this afternoon. So it has really been on the radar for hours, probably over 6 hours now that we've been tracking that storm. That's pretty impressive as it continues its trek farther to the east. All right, let's go over to Brian Good. Brian, it's 11:56. We promised folks would get them back at midnight, and we'll keep an eye on it through the at least the next hour or so as it continues to move.
Yeah, that warning officially is out for until the bottom of the hour, 11:30, 12:30, depending on your time zone there. But the majority of that will be in the very short term for Adair County. This is a time lapse of the storm reports and the line of storms. Again, we had those supercells were out in advance of it. Look at all the reports that have kicked in right when that line moved in. But look at the tornado symbols, the ones that have been very consistent. And I think this is the one that's likely now that's into Somerset, has done extensive damage, and it looks like catastrophic actually. And a lot of the images we're getting all the way into London, Kentucky, and it's still doing damage as I'm talking to you guys in southeast Kentucky. That was a long track one. That one, again, that path you can go all the way back into southeast Missouri. And then we had our cells here that produced the wind damage, not really tornado damage, but wind damage right into the Louisville metro, and then you head into Indiana. But look at the gap there. There is a gap with the least amount of reports, nearly zero in several cases, and a stretch there of Indiana and up the 71 corridor. So if there's any spot that got fairly lucky tonight, Kevin, I think it was that particular area of wave country.
Yeah, I mean, what a day. We've seen so many reports. All right, let's go over to Ryan Hoke. Ryan, we've got 2 minutes.
Yeah, one final check here of the MPing reports here in the metro area. These are from folks like you who have the MPing app for your phone, or maybe you're using RadarScope to submit these reports. And you can see these purple, just absolutely critical sort of damage reports from the wind here and over towards like Shively, and once again just west of, say, Fern Creek there. And then, of course, some of these red, like trees uprooted sorts of situations, southwest Louisville. Once again, a little closer like Glen Mary there in 265. The power outage map continues to be a tool that we've used a lot this evening. The power outages continue to rise in Louisville, nearly 7%. That's 28,213 customers here in the metro right now. The worst that we have by percentage, that's percentage tracked, is not Nelson County necessarily, but is Spencer County, and you'll see that's a 52.7% power outage there. That's nearly 4,000 folks in Spencer County, small county, small population. That's most of the county, or I should say at least a majority of the county there without power, Kevin. So the crews are going to be working through the night.
Yeah, for sure. We mentioned that we've had the damage reports. I can show you one more thing before we go. That happens to be another tree on a house. We've seen several of these images areas with trees down. Again, where was this one located?
This is over by just east of the fairgrounds.
Wolf Avenue, off of Preston Highway. So that's a tree on a home there. And you can see that it looks like it's on a car, too. So we've had a number of trees that have been down in addition to the power outages that we've seen. All right, one more check of the radar here. Just letting you know what's going on across parts of the viewing area to our south. And that's the fact that we do still have the severe thunderstorm warning in place across the southern part of the viewing area, including Adair County, until 11:30 tonight. So that's one thing that we'll be watching. Can we show the radar view? And then you'll notice with that, the tornadoes are well to our south. So here we are in Louisville. The storms we're watching, Adair County. You're the only one left with the warning that has storms in it. So I'm going to zoom into it and give you one more bit of information before we let you go. And we will still watch this storm. You probably still have another 15 minutes until it moves out. We do still have some wind with it. The latest scan on the wind shows some easing of that. It's, again, not far from the Columbia area, pushing just to the south. This is the greatest part of the wind that you can see here, just north of Breeding. Sound familiar? We've tracked storms through here already once today. These will continue to track across southern parts of Adair County as those move through. Brian, any final words before I jump us back to the home view here?
Yeah, just be careful out there traveling because there's likely still some tree damage you can't see. So if you have to venture out late tonight, early tomorrow morning, you may come upon a tree branch cross the roadway. You can sneak by in a hurry. So just take it really slow. Watch out for down power lines. Don't touch them. Stay away. And make sure to report them to LG&E so they can get to them, because I got a feeling we're going to have a lot of those reports as the overnight continues, especially being a Friday night, not the normal traffic flow out there. So just be careful if you have to go out at all.
Yeah, I have a feeling we'll see a lot more of those power outages even occur as the night goes on, probably. Not because of more wind, but just because of loose limbs and so forth that's taken place. Be careful. We're going to wrap up our coverage. It's 12:01. We're going to keep an eye on the storms to the south. They're moving out. They are starting to drop certainly below severe limits everywhere except for Adair County. That storm, again, severe warned, not tornado warned. We'll get you back to the late night programming. We'll be here as the night unfolds. If we have to jump back on, we will. We appreciate you trusting and watching the Wave Storm Tracking team. It's been a rough night for some folks, especially as you look at the damage that has occurred, what you've seen come out of St. Louis. Our thoughts are with those folks. We hope you've been able to stay safe tonight. We appreciate you choosing Wave. On behalf of all of our team here at Wave News, I'll say good night, and we'll see you the next time. Could be over the weekend for some of us, and many of us will be back on Monday. I'm Kevin Harnett. Have a good night.